Yes, we are live now.
Good evening, everyone. Before we start our meeting tonight, I do have some recognitions that I'd like to go over. Every year at our employee summer picnic, we acknowledged lengths of services for employees. And because of COVID, we did not have that event this year. So I'm going to like take this part of the evening and recognize length of service for employees for the town of Normal. And it's a pretty impressive list. So I'll start with 10 years of service. Facilities Management Department, we have Chad Philippe. In the Fire Department, we have Carlos Aguilar, Matthew Johan, Matt Sweeney, and Jared Zobrist. In the Police Department, we have John McCauley, Eric Sage, Mindy Vaughn. And in Public Works, Dallas Woodworth. With 15 years of service to the town of Normal, in cultural arts, we have Jenny Raisbeck. In finance, we have Andrew Hune. In fire department, we have Skip Shapebauer and Jeff Sigmund. In Normal Public Library, we have Amy Coulard. In Parks and Rec, we have Chris Kelly and Craig Onsrud. In the police department, we have Shane Bachman, Warren Dobson, Jim Ferguson, Jeremy Flood, and Ted Van Holven. In Public Works, we have Andrew Casselai, Cody Friedling, Chris Pipp. And in the water department, we have Troy Knolenberg and Chris McMahon. With 20 years of service to the town of Normal. In engineering, we have Terry Whalen. In the fire department, we have John Duvall, Tom Sennett, Todd Van Dyke. In inspections department, we have Randy Schoolcraft and Troy Sondergoth. In the police department, we have Chad Bach, Kevin Ryan. In public works, Danny Cochran. And in the water department, Chris McFadden. With 25 years of service to the town of Normal, in the fire department, we have Scott Danielson, John McCann, Greg Moore, Bob Schumacher, and in the police department, Ron Stoll. In public works, Eric Aschenbremer and Ed Thomas. With 30 years of service, in the Normal Public Library, Mary McKeith. With 35 years of service in the inspections department, Greg Tremmel. I think Greg was shocked that he had 35 years of service and took a week's vacation. I've been here that long. And in the Normal Public Library, Brenda Peden. We had some retirements in 2020, and we'd like to acknowledge those retirements for their service to the town of Normal. In the fire department, Ed Collins retired at 30 years, Kevin Henderson at 26 years, and Daryl Reeps at 25 years. In innovation and technology, we had Mindy Dance retired with 22 years of service. In the inspections department, Sheila Elgin with 29 years of service. At the Normal Public Library, Craig Humphrey with 31 years of service, and Jeannie Moonen with 36 years of service. In the police department, Brian Quinn, 25 years, and Michael Paul Smith with 26 years. In the Parks and Recreation Department, after 32 years of service, Tom Butler retired. And in the Public Works Department, John Filter after 44 years of service. That is incredible. That is incredible. And thank you all for your time with the town of Normal, and congratulations to your retirees. I hope you enjoy your retirement, and I hope you stay connected to Normal. Call to order a meeting for the Normal Town Council for Monday, December 21st, 2020. Please call the roll.
Mayor Coos.
Here.
Mr. McCarthy.
Here.
Ms. Cummings.
Here.
Mr. Nord.
Here.
Ms. Smith. Mrs. Lorenz.
Here.
Mr. Preston.
Here.
We'll begin with a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The governor has issued a disaster declaration related to the public health concerns caused by the statewide COVID-19 pandemic. As mayor, I've determined that an in-person meeting is not practical or prudent because of the risk of exposure to COVID-19 virus stemming from an indoor gathering, and that a remote meeting is in the best interest of the health, safety, and welfare of the council, the staff, and the general public. We move to public comment. We have one public commenter tonight, Carl Sela. And just a reminder to state your name for the record, and you have 3 minutes of comment. Mr. Sela, go right ahead. You're on mute, Mr. Sela.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Carl Sela. I'm a normal guy. I'd like to talk about the proposed changes to the liquor licenses and the town's general approach to the virus. I suppose specifically the discussion, analysis, and the community impact aspects of the proposal as presented to the council by the staff. These summaries are clearly written by bureaucrats and for politicians. Council vaguely recently voted to spend over $100,000 to beautify the alleyways of Uptown based on a staff recommendation that this made financial sense. I feel to see how prettier alleys will attract hundreds of visitors a year that will spend hundreds of additional dollars in taxable transactions, but that was glossed over in the staff recommendation. And the council has spent larger sums of taxpayer money on flimsier logic, so there was precedent. And I disagree with the council's more recent decision to spend tax money on bike paths, or gas tax money on bike paths, but the voters clearly put cyclist quality of life ahead of car driver quality of life, or they wouldn't have elected Mayor Coos. But now we're not dealing with taxpayer dollars or with whose quality of life gets priority. We're dealing with actual lives. The common saying among politicians is, if it saves just one life. I'm sure neither the mayor nor the staff did the real cost-benefit analysis appropriate to our ongoing support of Pritzker's Destroy Illinois plan, but I have. By my calculations, the proposed ordinance and our general support of the Destroy Illinois plan will indeed save one life. Yes, one life. And what is the relevant cost of saving that one life beyond the $90,000 or so the staff put before the council? Again, the professional staff didn't consider the cost relevant. Neither did the council, including the mayor. But I crunched the numbers. Statistically, yes, we will save one life. For the mere cost of tens of thousands of dollars of town revenues and 3 lives. Whether that's a suicide of a business owner that you've ruined for no good reason, or an individual who eventually dies of opioid overdose because you shut down all meaningful human interaction, or the child in the other car when a person you've put out of work turns to alcohol and then goes for a drive. Statistically, destroying our economy has consequences beyond just dollar signs. And I'm not grandstanding. I could have easily tweaked the numbers to make the ratio 100 to 1 rather than 3 to 1. But I'm looking for truth and responsibility, not headlines or whatever else. This is not a vote on whether to put teeth behind the town's bullying of our local businesses, or just a modification to our liquor code, but a vote to whether the council actually cares about the actual lives of the townspeople. I know a lot of the council members have little regard for the little people of our community, but voting to kill 2 of them is a good way to go on record about just how little. Thank you.
That concludes our public comment. We move to the omnibus agenda items considered routine and will be taken by one vote unless a council member would like to pull an item for discussion. And I'm not doing my job here. I need to pull this up. Ms. Smith.
I asked to pull resolution C.
And Mr. Nord.
Thank you. I'd like to pull item D, as in David.
A motion for approval, please.
So moved.
Second.
Items handled under Omnibus are approval of the minutes of the work session of December 7th, 2020, and approval of the minutes of the regular council meeting of December 7th, 2020. Report to receive and file town of normal expenditures for payment as of December 16th, 2020. Item C is, please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The omnibus is approved. Item C is a resolution approving the allocation of $450,000 from the general fund to support the Town of Normal Small Business Relief Program reimbursable by DCEO Cure ES Grant Program. Ms. Smith.
I move this item.
Second.
Ms. Smith.
Thank you. With the council's and the mayor's indulgence, I wanted to pull this from the omnibus agenda item to emphasize that this action tonight is simply authorizing the budget to advance the funds for this program for subsequent reimbursement when those dollars come in. But if it would be possible, I would like to request staff to give us some update on the progress of this grant program.
Sure. I've asked Mr. Hansen to participate in that conversation. Certainly, we are not prepared to talk about specific applicants or specific grant awards at this point, but he can certainly talk about the program. Mr. Hansen?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Reese, and thank you, Councilmember Smith, for this opportunity to talk about this great program. Just to give a brief perspective, the state of Illinois announced these grant opportunities back in mid-September, late September. This team of town staff worked with other regional municipalities, put together a program in pretty quick order, applied for the funds in October, late October, were awarded the $450,000 through the CURE program, which is part of the broader federal CARE dollars that came from Washington to Springfield. And this is the economic support wing of that, which is to assist small businesses directly through granting agencies. We, upon receiving notice of those funds, put together a portal with the help of IT, announced to the broader public just before Thanksgiving that there was going to be $450,000 available through this program. And then on December 1st began taking applications, which remained open until the 8th. The town received interest from between 90 and 100 businesses total, in which 65 or so actually completed the application process. And then we have gone about, a team across multiple departments has gone about vetting those applications and those requests. The program allowed for each business to apply for up to $5,000 in 3 different buckets: operational assistance, marketing assistance, and business modifications assistance. So a prospective business could receive up to $15,000 total if they qualified for all the expenses. The 65 grant applicants requested somewhere in the neighborhood of $737,000 in funds total, which obviously is significantly more than the dollars that we had available. But not all the requests were eligible expenses. Some of them were expenses for funds to be used in the future, and this grant requires that all expenditures for cash be done before the end of the year, so those are non-eligible expenses. There were a number of other grant conditions. In the end, it looks like pending council approval tonight, we have and will have the ability to help 90+% of the applicants with most or all of their requests for eligible expenses, which is great to be able to provide that kind of assistance. And then from there, we would then submit those eligible expenses and obviously the money that's been allocated to DCO for reimbursement to our general fund. But in the end, we're going to be able to help a number of businesses. The good news here in the last week or so, this program is running concurrently with the BIG program, which is another grant funding of cure money through DCEO. And in the last 7 days, a number of our businesses have received big grants as well. If you get big funds, you do not get Cure ES funds. So some of the people that were in our pool withdrew, which provided more funding for us to help more businesses. So at this juncture, we're still vetting out a few details, looking for the appropriate paperwork, which we can show the auditors and certainly the DCO reviewers. But most or all of the expenses that have been requested that are eligible will be receiving funds sometime around the end of the year, first part of January, which I think is great news for those businesses who have been certainly affected by the pandemic.
Well, I just wanted to have you clarify that if you can give the specifics of the winnowing from total number of applicants to what disqualified someone who might have dropped out to the final determination, because what I'm hearing you say is the emphasis was on, did the application satisfy the restrictions of the grant program? And that is where you had to base your determination on who would get funding. Was there any other qualifying criteria that the staff used?
Well, yeah, I mean, within the program, you had to either show a loss in revenue or a true loss in your business. That was one of the DCO requirements. That was obviously not difficult to do for most businesses. You had to show actual expense incurred. So like for the marketing and digital, you had to show actual expense related to marketing and digital expense related to COVID, or in the business modification, you had to show that you made modifications in order to do business because of COVID, whether it was additional PPE, whether it was additional safety precautions related to your interaction between employee and customer. A lot of things qualified, obviously, from PPE to shielding to business modifications in terms of layout, but they had to actually have those expenditures completed and submitted receipts in order for us to qualify them for reimbursement. So as an example, we had a business, I'll use this as an example, who turned in 60 some receipts for expenses related to COVID that we all had to verify and then cross-check, but ultimately they proved out, and so those are qualifying expenses which we can then reimburse through the grant program for that particular business.
So you encountered the same so-called shoebox filing system that some accountants encounter when doing tax returns for businesses, that their accounting system may not be their strong suit, but staff worked with the applicants to verify them, even if it wasn't presented to you in a clean format.
Sure. We've spent since December 8th, there's been a cross-disciplinary team of staff who have emailed, called, connected with just about every applicant on the list. There were very few applicants that actually submitted all the materials that were needed the first time. And so, yeah, we kind of broke it up into groups and reached back out. And in fact, we're still doing that to this day. I was on the phone with 3 different applicants today regarding their request, trying to offer assistance. But ultimately, the money is there to assist them through this pandemic, and we want to get all $450,000 out to those small businesses who certainly need it, and to get it to those who have been significantly harmed. And I think the committee's done a good job balancing the requirements of meeting the DCO grant requirements with working with businesses in what for retail obviously is a very busy time of year, to give them the latitude and the timing to get us the information we need so we can provide them support.
And with our vote tonight, how soon might a successful applicant expect to receive the funds?
Certainly, we're hoping to actually contact them tomorrow with the number that we anticipate them receiving, the dollar number. Then obviously there's paperwork, there's grant agreements and things that have to be signed. I would expect checks to go out just after the first of the year.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all I had.
Ms. Smith, as a small business person, I would say that we keep our records the way we do to ensure that accountants are fully employed. Mr. Nord.
Thank you. A question about the criteria that was used. Was adhering to any of these state orders or guidelines, was that a criteria that was used to disqualify someone?
One of the criteria was that they be in compliance with any applicable state or local law. Yes.
That I believe
Were-
that's a DCEO requirement.
Okay. Since that's a question right now as to what is law and what's not, were there any businesses that didn't make the cut because of that particular criteria? And if so, what's the plan if it turns out that the courts say that that was not a law?
Yeah, I think there was only one business in question, and obviously grant awards haven't been determined yet. All the rest, I believe, are in compliance. Another requirement that the state required was that they be current on all their state sales taxes as a retail business. So we have to run them through the state SAM system to make sure that everything is current with any of those requirements as well. So we actually still have work to do.
Okay, but as far as the state's health guidelines that our governor has put out, there was only one business that was disqualified because of that?
Well, again, the final determination hasn't been made. I know there was one that we had concern with, but I think all the rest were in compliance. I can't speak to the legal issues related to the pending mitigation, Mr. Nord. That's outside of my purview.
Sure, but once we allocate the full $450,000, then this is done for us, correct? And that's going to happen here within what, a week?
Sure, but
Okay.
again, but not all the funds have been allocated at this point, and it's still pending council action.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. McCarthy.
Thanks, Mayor. I just want to thank staff for jumping on top of this opportunity. I know things have been moving fast and opportunities between the state and federal government have been hard to keep up with. And although I'm sure Mr. Hansen, you and the team and everybody at the town has probably heard this already, but if you haven't, I know there's several of us that went knocking on doors and phone calling businesses to let them know about this program. And universally, every business that I talked to was very appreciative of the efforts you guys went through to try to support in every way we can. So if you haven't heard that, every business I talked to is very appreciative of all the efforts you guys are going through to get on this, to get some grant dollars and help out our local businesses. So thanks for what you're doing.
Thank you. We had a great team. So as we discussed this morning, and it's been very gratifying to take a project on with my colleagues to assist businesses. This can be a pretty thankless job sometimes. So this is one of those times when you really can see the good that can come from a program like this.
Before we call a roll, would all council members check to see that your hand's down? Thank you. Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The resolution is approved. Item D is an amended resolution to appropriate $926,000 of motor fuel tax funds for the Gregory Street Culvert Rehabilitation Project over Sugar Creek. Mr. Nord.
I so move.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Nord.
Thank you. If I've got this location right, earlier this year, we have approved extending a bike trail further down Gregory. So My question on this project is that bike trail, was it incorporated into these designs for this bridge? So we don't have to go back and redesign and incorporate it later?
Mr. Nord, I've asked Mr. Otto to be on the call to respond to council questions about this project, and there he is. So,
Thank you, Mr. Nord. No, the bike trail that you're referring to is west of Adelaide, so it's an extension of Constitution Trail going west towards Maxwell Park. This project includes a pedestrian bridge on the north side, and that's an extension of the sidewalk, basically giving access to Redbird Court Apartments, or the Cardinal Court Apartments, excuse me. There's also a pedestrian bridge on the south side, helping folks access U-High. We also have plans in the future to extend a sidewalk up to Main Street. The state is looking to redo portions of Main Street up to and through the intersection at Gregory, probably within in the 5-year horizon. So this will also set us up for access to that improvement that the state's planning to do.
So was this bridge along the route of where the trail is supposed to eventually connect?
No, the trail would end and it actually crosses south the trail currently runs on the south side of Gregory from the Collegiate Branch, which tees into Gregory just west of the bridge. It then runs west to, if you can envision the signal there at the Cardinal Court Apartments. It crosses to the north side of, Adelaide there, and then runs west to the Adelaide intersection.
Okay, so then this bridge isn't going to be impacted in the future by the trail.
That's
All right.
correct.
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Ms. Smith.
Some of the questions I had on this project is that there's been discussion on roadway projects having a consistent ranking system to identify the most critical projects for consideration. And I was told in response to my query that this was not the standard used in pushing this project forward, but instead it was identified as a critical bridge project. Mr. Otto, could you speak to what went into that review and that rating?
I'd be glad to. For our bridges, they are treated separately from our roadway pavement process. You might remember we recently approved a pavement rating project where we're going to look at all the streets in town and try to develop some prioritization metrics. For bridges, we use what we call the National Bridge Inspection Standards. And that's a federally mandated process and scale that we have to use. So that's managed through the Illinois Department of Transportation. We have a bridge inspector on staff that is responsible for inspecting the 27 bridges that the town owns and maintains. And then we submit those to IDOT, who then reports them to the federal government. So the scale that we use for bridges is on 0 to 9. Gregory currently is in an overall condition of a 4, which is a rating of poor. So it's been higher on our priority. We've actually, last fiscal year, we moved it up to this current fiscal year just because of the rate of deterioration that we were seeing on the underside of the deck with concrete spalling. And so we're glad to be able to get that done this summer. Our plan is to do it while school's out for ISU.
Thank you. And a follow-up question on the funding for this. So in response to the queries I had, this is funded from state motor fuel taxes. So this is a culvert project using transportation dollars, but not necessarily requiring normal citizens to directly support this, but rather an allocation of budgeted dollars provided to us through the state motor fuel tax. Is that an accurate statement? And this probably goes to Mr. Yoon or Mr. Hansen.
I can take care of it. The project is funded through the state motor fuel tax, yes. So we get an allotment based on population. So each year, and that's where the money's coming from. It's not coming from the local motor fuel tax.
Okay. And do we have any state motor fuel tax dollars remaining once the allocation is dedicated to this culvert project for this fiscal year?
We do, yes. We have some dollars left in the budget for resurfacing. We have some projects that are still underway, specifically Franklin. I don't have the full list, but yes, we do still have some dollars left. And then we'll talk about the CIP later tonight. And there's also projects listed for next fiscal year and each fiscal year thereafter.
And a final question on the timing of this, because I know there can be some frustration among local citizens on the lag between the announcement of a project and when it begins. So where specifically is the stage of this project and when will the actual construction begin?
Sure. We hope to bid the project out either late winter or early spring so that we're ready. We can have the contracts in place so that they can turn dirt as soon as school's out for ISU, with the hope of getting it open before the fall semester starts. We'll be bringing the contract back to council sometime, hopefully early spring for contract approval after we take bids for the project from local contractors.
But because we're voting on it tonight, then is this part of our 2021 budget consideration?
Most of the funding is actually in the current fiscal year.
Okay.
We did have to add some funding in the next fiscal year just because as we got through the design, as mentioned in the report, we found some unexpected items in the bridge condition and things surrounding it. So we wanted to be opportunistic with how we approach the project.
Thank you. And I appreciate everybody letting me ask my wonky questions. Thank you.
Further on this item, please call the roll.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith, Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The resolution is approved. And that concludes our omnibus agenda. We have one item of general orders, and that is an ordinance concerning 2021 liquor license fees. Could I have a motion for approval, please?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Reese, I think you had a couple of opening comments.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to share with council that this particular item on your agenda pertains to liquor license holders as we look and prepare for 2021. We are about a month or 6 weeks away from our typical annual renewal of liquor licenses. In our community, we have liquor licenses that are generally renewed once a year at the same time in bulk. So as staff prepares for liquor license renewal, we wanted to present this to you for discussion. And that way we can prepare accordingly if council chooses to make changes to the liquor license fees for 2021. You'll note in your council packet, page 7-6 identifies the liquor licenses that the town has. We have licenses ranging from license A to license R in terms of the alphabet, all sorts of different kind of licenses. What staff has recommended to you was a consideration of waiving the 2021 liquor license fees for some of those license holders. In each of those on page 7.7-6, it's identified what licenses we're talking about. It's either on-premise consumption, hotels, brew pubs, stadiums, movie theater, and the like. And for the driving factor is to recognize the impact that the pandemic and Restore Illinois mitigations have had on these particular liquor license holders this year. And so we have presented this to council for your discussion and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Reese. Ms. Smith.
I just wanted to express my support for this motion. I see it as a way for us at the local level to provide some specific relief to an industry sector that has been hard hit as we attempt to battle this pandemic, and that it will help, I believe, about 55 businesses. And in bringing this up with businesses, and Mr. McCarthy had shared that he mentioned it to some specific businesses, that they would welcome any help that could be provided. And I see this as something that here on the local level, we can do to complement what the state is trying to do and what is being provided to businesses at the federal level. And thankfully, there is discussion of a new federal relief package on the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, please call the roll. Oh, Mr. McCarthy.
Sorry, Mayor, I thought I had it up. Yeah, I just wanted to echo Ms. Smith's comments that I think this is a very creative way to help support our local businesses. And the feedback I got was basically that every little bit helps right now. So although the dollars for some of these don't seem very large, all the businesses were very, very appreciative. So thanks again for staff for this creative idea.
And Mr. Norton.
Thank you. I think the idea of giving our businesses a break on their liquor license fees from last year is a good idea. And because most of them were closed most of the year. Now, refunding going into 2021, I would rather see it be prorated rather than waive fees, because well, Ms. Reese, would you explain what the business has to do in order to receive their liquor license fees to be waived? What action they have to do or follow?
Sure, and I'll invite City Clerk Angie Honker to join the conversation. She is the one that sends out the renewal notices. Basically, what we would do if council authorizes this, what you are doing is waiving the fee. So when we renew their liquor license, we would not charge them their 2021 fee. So they just simply wouldn't be invoiced.
Actually, let me be a little bit more specific.
Okay.
In the ordinance, it says that they need to adhere to the any of the orders, guidelines, regulations put out by the governor, by the health department, by the mayor and town manager. They don't have to follow. I mean, they have to voluntarily do that. Right now, there's no enforcement mechanism. And if they do that going forward, then they receive this money, correct? Or then they receive the refund.
No, there is no refund. They've already paid their 2020 fees. We're almost done with 2020. We're talking about not invoicing them in
Yes.
20, right, of
So
giving
then
them.
they would get a waiver.
Correct. They would get their liquor license fee, or excuse me, they would get their liquor license, but they wouldn't pay for it, is what we're talking about. And then as 2021 progresses, it's under the assumption, this is predicated on the assumption that they will continue to follow state and local laws. And almost all of our liquor license holders are doing that. I see Mr. Day has joined the conversation, so I'll defer to him in terms of compliance issues.
Yeah, under the provisions of the ordinance, in order to get the waiver, they have to have been in compliance with COVID regulations, and they have to remain in compliance for the next fiscal year. We have built in an appeals process, so if for some reason they had been found to not be in compliance with those regulations and that's later reversed, then there's a way for us to settle up after the fact. So there's an appeal process built into this.
Okay, so this is not a reward for them keeping their businesses closed. This is a reward for them to follow and remain closed if the governor says close or follow whatever orders. The ordinance says it's not just laws, any executive order of the governor, any order, guideline, regulation, or administrative rule. I mean, this is beyond just giving them a break because of an expense that they had last year or in 2020 because the government came in and closed them down. We're now compelling them going forward to blindly follow whatever regulation the state puts out, even if our state legislators do not make it a law. They have to do that in order for the town to reward them with this.
Well, no, it's
rebate.
the law now. I don't know where you're getting your information that the General Assembly has to pass a law, but that's incorrect.
Well,
The
it says
orders, regulations, guidelines right now are laws that they have to follow.
Well, there's a lot of people in the state that are not. There's state's attorneys that are saying that this is not law. So, you know, why are we asking something over and above? If this is a law, then why is it included in here? Because then it's not necessary if you're saying that it's already a law.
Mr. Nord, I'll take a shot at that, and Mr. Day can step in if he feels that there's more information there.
Well, Mr. Days is the attorney, so I'm asking for a legal answer to this because he's the one that's going to have to provide the legal remedy.
Mr. Nord, you have been interrupting people throughout the whole course. I have the floor, please. So we are a home rule form of government, and we can pass laws as we choose to for the town of Normal. That comes under the rule of home rule. This is not a reward. This is the intent of this is to relieve struggles that businesses in our community have had. And it's not much different than the grant program that we just passed with CARES dollars. So what we're doing is we're offering an assistance for businesses that struggled, and arguably some will say struggled unfairly and with more difficulty than other businesses. But again, this is an action of the town of Normal, and we can set pretty much any rule we'd like to set for the awarding of such a grant. Mr. Day, if I'm off base, I refer to you.
No, that's correct. But again, yes, as you said, this is an incentive that we are giving to businesses. Part of that incentive is they have to continue to comply with all of the applicable regulations related to COVID.
I guess, Mr. Day,
indoor dining.
I guess I'm sorry. I would jump in though. In the introduction of this, we indicated that part of the driving factor was to acknowledge the businesses that have been shut down and impacted negatively by Restore Illinois. So that if that's a non-issue, then I'm not sure if this item even needs to be discussed. We would just continue on with imposing, I guess, the liquor license fees for 2021. But you know, staff can react accordingly, however council chooses.
What was the thought process behind not just refunding them their fees for 2020? And then whenever they decide to open back up, if it's halfway through the year, then prorate whatever their liquor fee is.
That wasn't a consideration. We didn't think of it. If council wants to go look backwards, I suppose the impact would be the same, but in February, we would go ahead and then bill them. So you would be suggesting that we cut them a check for a refund and then turn around in February and bill them for 2021. So I'm not sure.
Well, it's cut them a check for 2020 if they were closed. If they were open, then they were open. But if they were closed, then cut them a check. And then in 2021, if some businesses choose to follow the governor's recommendations and stay closed, then prorate it until they choose to open their business back up. So if they do it 6 months into the year, then their liquor license fee would be prorated in half. Otherwise, the way this is written is the only way they receive that reward is if they follow a very partisan issue right now, which is do they need to follow the governor's recommendations or not? And this is something that is very partisan. So now we're using taxpayer dollars essentially to get folks to go to one political side of this issue. And for that, I think this is wrong, because it also even requires them to follow future things that they don't even know about. Maybe they don't agree about it. Maybe we don't agree about it, you know, because there's things that the town is not even doing that the governor has put out. You know, the governor has said no indoor dining, but here the town council, I mean, you were at this meeting, 2-on-1 meetings, where the town ordered food and had more than 6 people, 7 people, a couple of the council members in a room, ordered food, indoor dining on town property. You know, so if we can't even abide by the governor's recommendations and guidelines, then it just seems very hypocritical for us to mandate that other businesses do the same thing. You know, because if we pass this and businesses decide not to open, the real impact is they may be telling wait staff, people that work inside, you can't come to work, you're no longer getting a paycheck. You know, so that is the real impact of this decision if we write it this way. And we're also saying that in the future, if the governor says whatever and it's related to COVID, or if the mayor or town manager say something and it's related to COVID, they have to follow, no questions asked. Otherwise, they're going to be financially punished and have to pay whatever the liquor license fee was. And that's one of the reasons I just don't like it. And I also still struggle. If you could maybe explain.
Mr. Nord, you've exceeded your 10 minutes. We'll come back to you. There are other council members that got their hands raised, so we'll come back to you. Ms. Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor. I just kind of wanted to, and I think you covered some of the things actually when you kind of jumped in, wanting to certainly take the opportunity to kind of bring out the fact that this is relief to the businesses as much as we can. We know, especially with the most recent executive order, which was handed down by our state leadership, our governor, whom we hope that leadership is respected enough to follow their executive order, which is law. And we understand that a lot of the businesses that have liquor licenses are more heavily impacted. So I'm very grateful that we've been thoughtful in this and how we approach this, and what more, you know, thinking of what more we can do to assist our businesses. We do want them around for the future. We want them to know that we are here to support them through this, that they're not in this alone. We know that there's been other businesses that have been able to stay open, but it has been harder for restaurants, especially with newer information and stating from the health departments that, you know, with food, you tend to have to take off the mask. A lot of restaurants don't have proper ventilation and things of that nature. So it has seemed like with this pandemic, there's been a single out of, you know, restaurants, bars, and places of that nature. So I think for us to continue to find ways to be helpful to them is certainly a great opportunity. And I think we'll continue to do this. We'll continue to find ways to assist those businesses in the future. And I'm looking to support this so that we can at least give them one more thing that they don't have to think about for 2021. Thank you.
Ms. Lorenz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm wondering if you as the chair would entertain a question to our colleague, Mr. Nord. Oftentimes, you know, he points out in sort of a devil's advocate format of why a situation or an idea is a bad one. I'm wondering if you would entertain a question to him. What would he do?
Well, I think he has stated his position that he would like to see us refund 2020 liquor licenses and prorate 2021 liquor licenses.
If refunds were not an option at this late point, what would be his suggestion?
I will let him answer that when it comes back to his turn.
Thank you.
Mr. Preston.
Thank you, Mayor. Question for staff, I would assume. Have there been any businesses in Normal, liquor license holders in Normal, who have to this point been found via court or state or local administrative hearing or proceeding to have violated a COVID-19 regulation? Do we have any liquor license holders currently who have already been found to officially have violated one of the governor's executive orders?
Currently, no. There is one citation pending for a hearing later this month, but currently there haven't been any findings.
Okay, so if we currently don't have any that would, if I'm reading this language correctly in our ordinance tonight, if we don't have any liquor license holders who, according to this, would not be applicable or would not meet the requirements to have their liquor license fee waived, then am I understanding right that by this action tonight, we are actually waiving the liquor license fees for all holders for Class B through R, and only if there are any, and all of them, and then only if any of them are found subsequently to have violated the governor's executive orders and have an opportunity to appeal. After appeals are exhausted, they are continually found to have violated the governor's executive orders. At that point, then they would be subjected to paying their regular local liquor license fee to the town. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr. Preston, with the exception of it's not all liquor license holders with licenses B through R. It's basically 55 liquor license holders in a variety of those categories.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
And yeah, slight clarification on that as well. So if they're found in an initial hearing to be in violation, they would have to pay the fee within 30 days. If that finding is later overturned on appeal, then the town would refund back that money.
Okay, but it would end up being in.
But it's essentially the same thing, yes.
Okay. Okay. So really, at this point, anybody who falls under these classes of liquor license, any of these small businesses in Normal, would then qualify with this action tonight to not pay the fee as it stands today. Now, if there are any that subsequently are found to be in violation of COVID restrictions, that's when it becomes a question. But right now, as of today, there are no businesses that we are quote unquote punishing with this. And in fact, I think it's a good thing that the town of Normal is looking and recognizing that it's our restaurants and our bars and a lot of independent local small businesses, not just chains, but guys, men and women who own one restaurant and that's it, and that's their livelihood, and they live in our neighborhoods and drive on our streets. They're the ones who've been hit, as we all know, incredibly hard this year. And the fact that all of them who are liquor license holders for these categories would be at this point eligible to not pay fees. I think that is a creative way for us to help our small businesses who have been struggling and the individuals who've been working for them who have also been struggling this year. And I'm certainly in support of that, recognizing that there are none who would be left off as of today. Thanks.
So I would just caution that we remove the words punishment and we remove the words rewards from our discussion on this item. This is a program presented to you that has criteria, very much as a previous program was presented with criteria to qualify for relief. This is not meant to punish people. This is not meant to reward people for good behavior. This is a way we thought we could help small businesses. And so that was the intent, and the way the ordinance presented to you tonight was written with that intention. Mr. Nord.
Thank you. First, if that was the intent to reward for something that happened in the past, I would like to make a motion that we remove any language that they have to comply with anything going forward.
I think what the proper statement would be, you would like to amend the ordinance to do what?
I would like to amend the ordinance to remove any language that requires any future compliance or action.
Thank you. So we have a motion to amend. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion for the vote.
Thank you. Is there discussion on the amendment? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Could there be some clarification on the text of what we are voting for?
What
Sure.
we've been asked to vote on, in my understanding, Mr. Nord, go ahead.
Essentially, I would like to see any language that requires any future action to be removed from this ordinance.
I think what you're saying, and you're going to have to say it, but removes any future action that
I guess removes any requirement that they need to follow, any rule, regulation, actually remove any language that requires them to follow anything that is not a written law, LAW.
All right. Further discussion on that. Ms. Lorenz?
Yeah, I kind of get a little squeamish on that. And I think even Mr. Day might have sighed a bit. I think we're getting into some very gray area that is just really kind of, I feel like we're losing sight of a good relief program. And I would ask our colleague to not lose sight of the bigger picture.
Seeing no further discussion on that, on the amendment, please call the roll.
Ms. Smith,
No.
Mrs. Lorenz,
No.
Mr. Preston,
No.
Mr. McCarthy,
No.
Ms. Cummings,
No.
Mr. Nord,
Yes.
Mayor Kus,
No. The amendment fails. We're now back to the original ordinance. Further discussion on that.
Yes, I had a question that,
Yes.
sorry, do I still have the floor?
Yes.
Okay, then this is not a relief package. This is a package where in order for them to relieve or to receive the incentive, they have to do something else. These businesses would rather stay open. And the amount of the liquor license, I could see some businesses saying, hey, I would just like to be open. So for those businesses that will choose just to pay the liquor license fee, what is the town's response and policy going to be if somebody says, hey, I'll just pay the liquor license fee? Can they open their doors and we won't send the police out? We won't send them letters from the liquor commission? What is our policy going to be then?
Policy still is liquor licensees are required to follow the law, which would include any orders, guidelines. Under Illinois law, any enactment is a law if one, it is authorized, and two, it is not aspirational or suggested. Clearly, the governor's orders fall into that. The regulations fall into that. The guidelines that are adopted by the governor's orders fall into that. Those are laws that they are legally required to abide by. So all of our liquor licensees are going to have to abide by the law.
So this is redundant. We're paying them for something that you're saying they already have to do. I mean, and if they pay this fee, we're still going to send the police out after them. We're going to do stuff with the Liquor Commission. Then the question that I was going to ask before I ran out of time before, I'd like to know, just like some understanding, and I know our constituents would, on November 2nd, we were told that the town, and let me read what the mayor had put out, and this is on the town's website as a memo from the mayor. He said this at the council meeting, put it on Facebook, and it's published on the town's website, is that any complaints received by the town of Normal will be forwarded to the McLean County Health Department, who will respond accordingly. So that we give people the knowledge as to how we got here. How did the policy change from just forwarding to the health department to what we've been doing, which is sending police and the Liquor Commission after them, and now this ordinance? How did we get from November 2nd to this ordinance?
Mr. Nord, we've kind of gone over this multiple times in emails and conversations in the last 2 weeks, and I've shared with you that the report that the town staff responds to any citizen inquiry. Normal Police Department responds to all calls for service. The reports that the Normal Police Department has taken are to gather information. That information has in fact been shared with the health department. In regard to the particular item that's going to be before a Liquor Commission administrative hearing next week, that's a different matter than this item today. What we're talking today is about potentially waiving liquor license fees in 2021 to acknowledge those that have been had some business interruption this year due to Restore Illinois. So I guess I'd flip it a little bit and basically say that of the 55 liquor license holders we're talking about, potentially 55 of them, or 54 perhaps, just continue on into 2021 exactly as they are today. No one has to change their option in terms of their operating practice. So it is in fact acknowledging that those that are in compliance with Restore Illinois are shut down for indoor dining, are having their operations impacted, and this is a proposed relief to those that are doing that. What you are referencing is one liquor license holder in town that we are addressing through the liquor code. Mr. Day, do you have other comments to add to that?
No, I mean, that's correct. In terms of the policy, again, the law is the law. I would disagree with you that this is a partisan issue. I think that following the law is not a partisan issue. You may disagree with it, but our job is to enforce the law in the government. It's not to pick and choose which law we would prefer to follow, which we wouldn't. In terms
So then
of,
are you saying that the other municipalities that are choosing not to enforce Pritzker's orders are all doing something wrong? I mean, all the other municipalities in the state?
Mr. Nord, we're talking about the town of Normal. We're not talking about the state of Illinois. Please limit your discussion to the town of Normal issues.
Okay, so does the town of Normal know better which laws to follow than other municipalities in the state? Because even our state representatives have not made this a law. But in Normal, it seems like we must know more, apparently. And we're creating this essentially as a way to financially incentivize or bribe someone to follow these rules.
the law.
That
Mr. Nord,
our legislators have not created laws. So I'm not in support of this. I don't know that we need to talk about this anymore.
okay,
well,
I would like to, Mr. Mayor.
And I'm going to vote no.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is not the first time Mr. Nord has implied and even come right out and stated that we are bribing and doing things that would be completely unethical. And I just want council to acknowledge that that is absolutely not the case, not happening, and not okay to imply that you as a body or town staff would do that, just to be clear. And also, as council is aware, if we're going to start talking about and focus our discussion tonight on the liquor code process, I guess I'll point out to you as liquor commissioners, you wear dual hats. The process that is up for an administrative hearing next week is the exact same application of a liquor code that the city of Bloomington has done. So if there's any questions about that, certainly we can talk to council about our liquor code process, but that is not the issue at hand that town staff had presented to you on your agenda this evening.
Thank you. Ms. Smith and then Mr. McCarthy.
I would like to call the question, please.
We have a request to call the question.
Second. I'll second that. Do I need to second that?
We do need a second, and we
gladly
need a
second that.
super majority to call the question. So please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. We have a unanimous vote to call the question. Please call the roll on an ordinance concerning 2021 liquor license fees.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
No.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The ordinance is approved. We have 3 items of new business tonight. The first is a motion to approve the fiscal year 2020-2021 to fiscal year 2025-26 community investment plan.
Move approval.
Second.
I think Mr. Hune has got our annual presentation of the CIP.
Yes, he does, Mayor. Thank you for introducing that. Council, this is the time of year when we present to you our capital investment plan. We refer to it as the community investment because it certainly impacts our community significantly by all the projects we are looking to do in the next 5 years. Mr. Hune is going to share a presentation and staff will be prepared to answer council questions afterwards. We have all the various leadership team members on the call this evening to answer questions council might have about specific projects. Mr. Hune, thank you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? And can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Thank you, Pam. Yes, this, as Pam mentioned, this is the town's CIP. It's essentially our major capital planning tool we use as part of the budget process to essentially establish staff's recommendation for what we're going to plan on recommending to fund for the current year and the out 5 years. We have a number of slides to show the council tonight. And then at the end, as City Manager Reese mentioned, we can go into more detail if we need to. This, of course, the purpose is, again, to lay out the major capital investments the town has for the next 5 years. And these range, as you're well aware, from a variety of areas, from playground equipment to tennis courts, to roadways and curbs and sidewalks, to water mains and sewer systems. So it's quite a diverse plan. It's quite a diverse funding source. And we're hoping the presentation this afternoon or today will give you a sense of where the money comes from, how we kind of apportion it, and how we select these projects and display them for the council and for the citizens. We kind of organize the information in a way that hopefully is meaningful. We use essentially 5 different categories. These can be considered like 5 buckets of spending that we have across the entire town for across the whole 5-year period. As you can see on the slide here, it's transportation, public facilities, parks and open space, utility services, and capital assets. And there's a number of funding sources for each of those areas. I'm going to go into some detail in a few more slides on that. But just to give you a sense of this, the transportation spending is what you'd expect. It's going to be all the roadway, traffic signals, bridges, alleys, and so forth. Public facilities, when you see that category, you want to think in terms of the town's facility needs, the buildings we use for municipal government services. Think carpets and roofs and HVACs and building envelope and those type of areas. Parks and open space, that's exactly what it means. We're looking at funding, of course, playground equipment, tennis courts, the pools, the golf course. All those major infrastructure community amenities have a significant requirement that require funding to maintain. Utility services, you want to think about water and sewer and stormwater infrastructure. And then capital assets is kind of our category that encompasses patrol vehicles, our vehicle replacement equipment, ambulances, fire trucks, waste vehicles, dump trucks, everything we use as an organization to manage the capital projects from that perspective. So you can see they all have various funding levels. I'm going to get to that more detail, but the goal for this slide is simply to kind of explain the categories, and then we'll get more to funding sources beyond that in a few slides. We also identify which projects we consider critical, important, flexible, in a 1, 2, or 3 rating. And we use a color coding too. This becomes more relevant as we talk about our interactive site we have that kind of is our homegrown software that displays this information in terms of the project code, the funding source, the category, and then the actual rating. And I'll show you that shortly too. You've seen it in the past, but we'll show it to you again to where you can see it for the citizens and for yourselves. And again, critical means it's a top priority. It's been determined to be a top priority. It needs to get funded. It needs to be done either immediately within the next few years. Important that you can deviate a little bit. Flexible means we can probably push that project if we need to, or move it around depending on funding availability. All these things kind of encompass a staff diligence and review the projects. And then kind of how do we come about those characterizations, that rating system? And that's really a big question. Honestly, a lot goes into it. It depends on what we're actually doing. If it's a roadway, if it's a vehicle, what's the useful life of this particular asset? Are there federal mandates to maintain it? Are there compliance issues? Is it a health and safety issue? Is a life cycle almost done? Is there quality problems? Is there a probability of failure if we don't do it right away? So a lot of these things you can see on those bullet points, as well as funding source and availability or complexity of the project, all kind of make up this discussion at various levels with department heads about what needs to be done first and what needs to be funded right away. And they can be something very obvious where clearly this needs to be taken care of this year, or it might not be so obvious where more professional judgment comes into play. Rate studies or analysis comes into play, surveys come into play, rating indexes come into play. So there's a lot going on there. I won't go more deeper than that because that's an area for our other directors to kind of discuss, but it is a long process and it's pretty impactful, and it's kind of a matrix around every single thing we do on this. But it does in the end give us a sense of planning and priority. Of course, there are going to be projects that are not going to be funded that we keep track of. We kind of call these the unfunded projects. We track them closely when we can, when it becomes necessary to put those on the funding list. When money is available, we will do that. These are projects that we hope to get to, and we hope that our ability not to get them right away is not too costly, but this kind of amounts to deferred maintenance, as you probably hear that term quite a bit. And we haven't got unlimited resources, but we try to manage as best we can through a priority system and review of what needs to get done next based on certain funding abilities. This next slide, I'm going to show you a little more detail in a bit, but this is, kind of the interaction, our information we share. It's a pretty busy slide, and I think you probably recognize this, but it basically shows the information that's displayed by fiscal year, by funding source, by category, and by funding priority. And we hope that it's a lot of information. It does tie back to the budget. This is available right now on the website for staff and for the mayor and the council and others to look at. And we will look at that a little more closely in just a moment. These next two slides, now we're kind of getting into more of the GL accounting side of the capital projects and the funding side. This slide is kind of narratively gives you some information, but I'll kind of paraphrase it for you. We have essentially, 7 major funds that we use to fund our capital, and they all have uniqueness to them in terms of their funding source, how they're accounted for, if there are compliance requirements regarding using the funding, and that gives you a sense. You see general fund, parkland, community development block grant, motor fuel tax, water, sewer, and stormwater. And then you can see kind of what it's used for. This next slide is basically this very same slide, just kind of more visually appealing per se. And I'm going to kind of walk you through this because I think it's kind of a meaningful slide. Is if you look at the left-hand side of this slide, you see the general fund as kind of a big funnel. You can see we have over 100 revenue sources that go to the general fund. The ones listed on the slide are some of the more significant major ones. That all comes into the general fund. And one, it supports operating personnel costs to provide government services, but it also funds a variety of capital funds. There are 3 of them in the general fund that we kind of separate. The first one is the roadway fund. So every year, general fund moves money from all those revenue sources that come into it to the roadway fund to essentially address road, bridges, sidewalks, patching, and so forth, kind of transportation projects. The vehicle reserve fund, again, you're all very familiar with that. That's a fund we fund every single year to pay for patrol cars, ambulances, fire trucks, park and rec vehicles, a number of assets that we need for capital funding. And then we have our capital investment fund, which is also a fund where the town takes money from general fund, transfers it to that capital fund, and that pays for a variety of things. It mostly pays for public facilities, again, roofs, HVACs, carpets, building envelope. It pays for parks and rec information, playground equipment, tennis courts, pools, golf course, that kind of thing. So now move to the far right side of that slide. You can see the enterprise funds. That's water, sewer, and stormwater. These are also operating funds the town has. They're self-supporting from rates that the taxpayer pays, the ratepayer pays on utility bill, and they fund their operations and their capital needs. So water takes a piece of its rate that you pay as a user of the water system, as a user of the sewer system and the stormwater system, and that goes to operations and to capital. Significant projects are going on all the time in water and sewer and stormwater, to the tunes of tens of millions of dollars. Water mains, water rehab extensions. They also have vehicle reserve funds there. The sewer, as you're well aware, we're doing a lot of televising of the sewers to kind of map those. We're addressing lining projects, also vehicles. And then of course, stormwater has a lot of information and projects related to ditch drainage, creek maintenance, and also significant projects with regard to stormwater control. So this, and then the middle part here is another big section of the town's overall capital funding position and plan is parkland, which is a relatively small fund right now because not much development, but it's development fees pay for park improvements. CDBG, I know you're aware of that fund. That's all funded through an annual grant award from HUD, Housing and Urban Development, a federal agency. A lot of that money goes towards different social programs, down payment assistance, but also some of it does go to a capital type expenditures, sidewalk, ADA improvements, and so forth. And then motor fuel tax. This, of course, was discussed earlier tonight with Ryan's, Mr. Otto's project, state motor fuel tax fund. This is also a significant fund. It's from our share of the state motor fuel tax, the 38 cents that it's charged. We get a piece of that through a fairly complicated formula, as all cities and towns do, and that triggers certain compliance issues. But it basically goes to fund roads, bridges, sidewalks, and traffic signals and transportation itself. So hopefully that slide gives you kind of a feel for the different buckets, where the money's coming from, and essentially where it's allocated to. This project, we've got 130 projects in the pipeline for the next 5 years, just over $100 million of expenses. Again, the $100 million is crossing all those categories and all those funds. To give you a sense of kind of the breakout, you can see utility service, almost half of that $100 million is coming from utility services. So when I say that, you think water, sewer, stormwater plant program. The next big piece is transportation development. This, of course, is roads, bridges, sidewalks, curbs, traffic signals, and so forth. That's going to be from the roadway fund. It's going to be from the motor fuel tax fund, and a small piece from CDBG. Capital assets, again, that's the vehicles, the ambulances, the patrol cars, the waste trucks. And then the public facilities and parks, open space, 3% and 2%. Those are a little squeezed areas. They certainly, we would like to do more funding there. But of course, the public facilities is again, the assets of the town in terms of building envelope and so forth. And then parks and spaces is of course the tennis courts and golf course, pools and so forth. So in terms of hard numbers, in all those categories, you can see that we are up about $5.7 million from last year's 5-year plan to this year's 5-year plan. The majority of that increase is coming from the transportation area, motor fuel tax, and the roadway fund. And then of course, the utility tax, sewer and water. A lot of investment continues to be allocated towards water and sewer, as you're well aware, with the sewer lining program, more water capital. That's up significantly, about $2.7 million over the last year's 5-year plan for those two areas, water and sewer. And then an MFT, state motor fuel tax, that is up significantly too, for a couple reasons. One, there's obviously more motor fuel tax being collected with the increase last year, the 19% increase. The town receives a piece of that. And also as part of that increase, there were rebuild Illinois bonds issued by the state, and that money is being passed to the various cities and towns to help with infrastructure in the roadway. The town's going to get about $3.4 million of that over the next couple of years. So that's increased our capital spending in motor fuel tax. And then of course, the local motor fuel tax, the roadway fund that's funded by the general fund. If you can kind of think back to that one slide that showed the funnel general fund, we're routing a majority of the local motor fuel tax to the roadway fund. And that has increased, as you're well aware, as of this last December 1st. And we're programming into the budget more street and road projects as a result of that revenue source being enhanced. That's kind of a quick down and dirty of the capital plan. I'm happy to show you a little more detail. Let me see if I can flip my screen to that. I'm assuming I can. Are you seeing that change?
No, Andrew, we still see the presentation.
Okay, no problem. I know how to deal with that. I'll just have to stop sharing and then go back to it. There, so on the town's website, we have the past year CIPs. Hopefully you can see the website now.
Yes,
and
we
then
can.
If I pull up here, great, super. Click on this, and can you see that change too?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is the interactive side of our information for the taxpayer. Again, I talked a lot about the different funding sources. The color is obviously the criteria, the rating criteria. Then we have the category itself, and this is all for general fund. Let me see if I can get to it. So I'm not going to be able to. Hang on 1 second. Here we go. So this is capital fund. You can see the projects that we have here. Again, we can pull up here Anderson Tennis Courts. If you click on this as a citizen or yourself on the website, it'll pull you to more detail, actual project detail. And there are pictures that you can obviously see, obviously a big crack there, replacement's going to be needed. Hopefully I haven't lost you guys. Okay, good. Then again, we have all the funding sources here. You can look at water, MFT. Again, there's the project's MFT, and you can go and look at how much we're spending here. Street resurfacing projects, $1.7 million a year just for those alone. Again, we can go down to various funding sources, water and sewer. Here, you can see different programs, fire hydrant replacement, $100,000 a year. Some of the bigger ones down here, 1.4 million. This is a main replacement, Kingsley to Hovey to Dry Grove. So the intent of this is simply to provide everyone with all the list of projects by funding source, by category, and then when the spending is going to hit and how much we anticipate it's going to cost. We also keep just below that kind of all the unfunded projects that are still out there that we'll be watching, of course. And then this also kind of gives you a sense of where the fund balance is, how much money is going to come in and go out the door at certain times. That's kind of again, that I know you've all seen this before, and we put out there for anyone to look at. With that, I'm happy to take any questions, or we can look at more detail. And I would obviously call upon my colleagues if you want to share more specific project you want to look at specifically to get more detail. But this is kind of encompasses the total planning tool that we use for CIP.
Thank you, Mr. Hune. Mayor Coos, I think that concludes the staff presentation, but we have everybody available to answer questions about specific projects.
Great, thank you. And I'll start with Ms. Smith. You're on mute, Ms. Smith.
Thank you. And I do note that the total here is increased from the information that was in our Thursday council packet. And because I don't have a life on Saturday, I was perusing the packet and scanning through the numbers, and consistent with Ms. Loren's discussion of the water main project that has been a concern of a number of citizens. And I saw that was recorded for 2022-23. And so on Saturday afternoon, I had contacted Ms. Reese to ask for clarification as to whether or not this was because the next stage, which calls for the EPA review, would that be that time consuming that it was continuing to stay in 2022-23? Even over the weekend, she caught that and responded that no, it was an oversight. So if we're keeping score, I win for being wonky. Then moving on to other items, bike trails, Mr. Yoon, how are they categorized? Is it a transportation expenditure, or does it come under parks?
Sure. The bike trail information, there's a couple of different areas there, but right now we have that under transportation development. And I'd also default to anyone who might have some more additional data on that. We have most of that as transportation development for bike trails.
And Mr. Hune, I will jump in and make one clarification. It's actually both on occasion, because if you council might look under the capital fund on your council packet, page 8-9. In the capital fund, we show the Route 66 Kelly Detention Basin Trail Connection, and that's under Parks and Open Space. That actually is something that we've been planning, and it goes through the Kelly Detention Basin and such. So it actually is, it's both. It's occasionally transportation and sometimes parks and open space.
And that's consistent with the town's philosophy of a multimodal philosophy of transportation going beyond simply roads. And in looking at Mr. Yoon's presentation on the utilities, it seems that under the revised numbers, utility work represents about 47% of this total. So please confirm for me if I'm understanding this correctly. Those dollars are already, in a sense, budgeted because of the dedication of the enterprise funds for those projects, leaving the balance of the capital projects is something that we're having to make sure that we properly steward the other revenues coming into the town of Normal for the remaining capital projects. Is that an accurate way to interpret this?
Yes, yes, I believe so. Yeah.
Okay. And then I just want to thank you for including the Landmark Drive sidewalk in the budget for the upcoming year. I know that that is in my neck of the woods, and it is particularly unfriendly and non-ADA, and to see that get attention is great. And so I'm particularly pleased to see that. And I did, in response to some of the queries I have, we are not yet in a position to make use of that consistent rating system for prioritizing road projects. When do we expect to be able to do that?
Ms. Smith, I'm going to invite Mr. Otto to join the discussion. He indicated today that regional planning is moving forward with selection of the consultant for that. So Mr. Otto, would you care to add?
Absolutely. Thank you, Ms. Reese. Yes, regional planning, we've advertised the project out to the consulting community. We received a number of responses and we're now reviewing those, and regional planning will be making a selection on a consultant to do our study sometime in the next month or two. And then we plan to move forward with the study, and we should have that information in time for fall planning for next year's capital budget.
But for the current year, we're continuing to use this system that does require some subjective judgment about prioritizing road projects.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I believe that's all I had, and I'm lowering my hand now. Thank you.
Mr. McCarthy, your hand's been up from the previous, so I can't tell if you're wanting a comment at this point. You are not. Mr. Nord.
Thank you. My hand down. All right. For the priorities for this, how were the priorities set? Was this just staff? Did council have input? Could you speak to that? There was also a citizen summit that we had last year, and that information, you know, citizens said how they wanted their money to be spent. Could you speak to how all these priorities came about?
Sure, I'll give some of the highlights, and then about specific projects or specific categories, staff can add to it. One of the slides that Mr. Hune shared identified the priority rating considerations. So that is done by staff throughout the year in terms of evaluating the condition of these assets, and then prioritizing based upon funding opportunities as well as need. So really it is staff driven. We certainly take into consideration citizen input, comments, concerns that we've heard throughout the year as well, and also comments from council, because you also receive information from citizens.
Are there any specific ones you could mention that the council had influence and we changed a priority from what staff had, or the citizens had influence and changed it?
I'll take that one and say that the recent issue on Adelaide and Ruston in terms of water quality moved the project forward.
Are there any others?
I'm sure there are.
Yeah, Mr. Nord, I can't specifically go down the list and indicate which ones were brought to our attention by council or a citizen or staff. If you have a specific project that you are curious about, we might be able to react to that.
Well, I mean, I've got some questions about some specific projects. Really what I was getting to was just so people understand how this process works. And, you know, if what happened with the brown water issue is what people need to do, then we just need to let them know that that's perfectly acceptable for them to do what they did, because that's how you get results, and no judgment, just people need to be comfortable speaking up and letting people know. So really, that's it. Then another question, a general question, how flexible are these projects throughout the year if we decide to lower our priority or bump one up that we decided not to do? How flexible are we on that?
Generally, I would say we can be pretty flexible depending on the project and where we are in the design process. If it's grant funded, we have a number of projects that are grant funded and such, so we have to do things at a certain time. But you know, we can react and adapt If priorities change, we will try to be nimble as much as possible, but it does depend on the state of the asset. If it really needs to be repaired, for example, if it's a bridge that absolutely needs attention, we would argue that we need to give it attention. That's just an example. The other thing that I will share with council is just a reminder, all of the projects that we've identified as unfunded does allow us to also be nimble if we hear of grant opportunities. So if we hear that DCEO or any other potential state agency or federal agency might have funds available that meet a certain criteria, we can go down our list and see what capital projects do we have that we're planning to fund, and that might save our budget a little bit, or maybe things that in the unfunded list might qualify, we can pull those forward to a funding, a potential funding opportunity and seek grant funds. So we try to be nimble.
Okay, then on PDF page 53, which is packet page 8-10, the parks and open spaces, some things that were not funded were listed as critical, like some roof repairs for Fairview, Linden Street Barn.
Mm-hmm.
There's 3 of them. Could you explain, if these are critical, how can we push those off? And there are some up here that are below critical that we are funding. Could you explain the logic as to why some critical ones we're not doing and we're electing to do ones that are listed below a critical level?
Yes, in fact, I'll invite Mr. Clinch to join us. He's the Director of Facilities and Energy Management. He helps prioritize specifically our facilities needs like roof repairs. So generally, if it's something critical and we are unable to fund it because of the fund balance in the capital line item, the capital fund, Mr. Clinch will work diligently to find alternative solutions. But I think Mr. Clinch is on this call, so I'll ask him to identify how we can categorize some of these things as critical, and yet we don't have funds available right now to fund them. Also, Mr. Damry, Parks and Recreation Director, is on this list. We can address those specific issues, and I'm going to see which one of them is able to join. But
this is Mark. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
I don't have video. I'm sorry about that. Mr. Nord, your specific projects for the parks and open spaces roofing projects, as I understand, is what we're talking about.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so I don't want to speak for Doug, as those are more specific to him, but in context of, quite simply, the prioritizing of priorities, we generally have a rating system that prioritizes facilities and the systems based against other facilities that may be of lesser priority. So you may see the police department higher rated than a shelter, even though that, or maybe flexible or very important, whereas the Fairview shop roof in context of that facility may be critical, but in the overall organizational portfolio, it falls to the bottom. So I would say that the priorities are specific to location, and then the priorities amongst the locations kind of sort out the priorities of the projects, if that helps.
Yeah,
thank you,
that
Mr.
does, but it adds a little bit of confusion, because then as a council looking at all these projects, we don't really know the overall priority for which projects need to get the money, because you're right, we only have so much money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I don't.
Right. Mr. Nord, I'll also jump in this particular fund, specifically the capital fund. The 4 projects that are unfunded that we have color coded as critical come to about 600,000. So we would love to be able to do those. We just don't have funds available. So we're going to have to find either delay them and then incur some additional perhaps maintenance costs associated with that. But if you look at the projects we're looking to fund, The only things that that are highlighted as yellow in terms of important, or most of those items would not add up to the 600,000 we need to do the critical items. The 514,000 for the Kelly Detention Basin, we have a grant that's been allocated for that. So we can't really defer that for too long because we have a grant a timeline that we have to meet. So the only flexible project in the funded category is the Eagles Landing Trail Extension. And actually those grant dollars were awarded this year. So there's very little flexibility in the funded account, the funded projects. So the unfunded blue critical projects, we just don't have funds available.
You mean just in this?
In this particular capital
just
fund.
In this particular capital
Yes,
fund.
Correct.
Okay. And then there's lots of projects that were budgeted, I guess, this current cycle that have come in under budget or the money has not been spent. Is that money available that we can use for some of these items that are on the list still?
Well, projects that have been bid and awarded this year, if they came in under budget, those funds remained in the particular account, so they can certainly be reallocated. In this, you would see at the beginning of the page, and I'm sticking with the capital page because they were talking about capital fund. You'd see the beginning available capital funds for fiscal year 20-21 is 1.257 million. And then it shows current year, the projects that we have funded, and then total expenditures. So it would just, the funds would remain in the account and our fund balance would grow and thus be able to be allocated towards something else.
Okay, so are we using those funds? I mean, is that inclusive of the report that's here?
Mr. Nord, you've exceeded your 10 minutes, so I'm going to ask you to hold that question and we'll come back to you on that. I will make a comment on one thing you said, that people need to be comfortable to let us know what their concern is. And I will tell you, in my tenure on this council, I have not found people to be shy or uncomfortable about bringing issues to us that need our attention. Ms. Lorenz.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, a great segue into what I was going to kick off my remarks with, and that is, Mr. Nord, I wholeheartedly agree with you on your statement that people need to be comfortable with speaking up. So yeah, I give that a thumbs up as well. I have a question for appropriate staff members on a couple of projects. Maybe it's not specified, but I've kind of wondered about the condition of the roads in Savannah Green. I see that there's an unscheduled Savannah Park playground replacement, but I scanned for the roads in that particular area and didn't see anything. Is that something that is specified as a particular project yet, or is that part of just a general road maintenance priority at this point?
Thank you, Ms. Lorenz. Between Mr. Otto and Mr. Aldrich, we are certainly aware of the condition of some of the Savannah Green roadways, and I will let them refer specifically to that neighborhood.
Okay.
Yeah, you may recall a couple of years ago, we did have, I thought there was a council discussion on the condition of the roads and the amount of money necessary to do those projects. So that was discussed, as I recall, several years ago. Was not included in a priority project in the budget. Certainly can be considered. There's certainly a need out in Savannah Green in the alleys and the streets, no doubt of that. So from the public works standpoint, we do go to Savannah Green every year and welcome citizens to call us about specific conditions, both in the alleys and the streets. So every year the public works crews do go out and patch alleys and streets, and there's no doubt that that certain subdivision has some significant issues as far as concrete pavements.
Okay, and while I have you, Mr. Aldridge, maybe you're going to be the one to speak on the rest of the, I think there's a part two to the Sugar Creek Banks stabilization. Didn't we do one part, and isn't there another part that needs to be done, or am I mistaken on that?
There, I think the significant project, Sugar Creek, from Blair to Vernon was completed this year. And so on the public works standpoint, in our storm sewer fund, we do pay for creek maintenance projects.
Okay.
And so that particular project that was done this last year has contractor, I think, is still responsible for maintenance in it for the next couple of years.
Okay.
For the vegetation. However, we have contractors that are active working on other creek banks, ditches, detention basins to perform clearing and grubbing. So all the scrub trees that don't belong there, we're taking out.
Mm-hmm.
And then either maintaining or establishing new and appropriate vegetation in those creek banks. So,
okay.
For example, Anderson Park, that stretch from Vernon to up to College Avenue, portions the Parks Department has been doing a very good job with. And then actually our contractor was active on that portion last year doing prescribed burns and vegetation management there too.
Okay. So that's part of general creek maintenance, in other words.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So we hope to continue that town-wide, but I think more effort perhaps next year will be spent on clearing trees out of creeks and things like that. Something that we've let go for several years, but we really need to get some of the scrub trees out. So I think a lot of effort next couple of years for that.
Okay, very good. Well, those are just two examples that I had that I wanted to raise awareness to, because I know that people have spoken up in recent months and about those two areas. So thank you very much. That's all I have.
Ms. Smith.
Nope.
There we go. So I had a request, and I'm not sure if this has been provided, but in an effort to provide some clarity on terms of the roadways that specifically Normal is responsible for, within our town limits, we have US highways, state roads, county roads, and Normal streets. Is it available to have a map identifying the various jurisdictions for those, or is that in the process, or does that have to go on the back burner until you come up with some free time?
Ms. Smith, I think that is something that we can put together, and frankly, regional planning may already have something like that. So Mr. Otto, are you aware of that kind of map already exists showing the roadways that are outside Normal's jurisdiction?
We have maps available that show the town boundaries. Within those boundaries, the roads are generally ours unless they fall underneath state jurisdiction, which would essentially be Veterans Parkway and Main Street, US 51. So within the town boundaries, the roads are generally ours. The exceptions would be a few on the border between the town and the city of Bloomington. It's fairly complex on who maintains which roads on the boundary as it weaves its way from Division Street up through Fort Jesse Road, just east of Twanda Barnes Road. It's fairly complicated on who maintains it. Sometimes the boundary runs down the center of the road. For instance, over by Meyer on Hershey Road, it runs up, I believe, north of College. It runs through the center line for a while, and then it bounces over to the west side where the street is all Bloomington's. But that's also reflected in the municipal boundary map, and we can certainly provide that.
That would be welcome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Nord.
Thank you. So getting on to some other ones. Water. Are there any other locations in town that are receiving brown water? Because I may want to, or the council may want to up a priority from what it currently is.
Sure, I'll ask Mr. Burkhart to join the conversation. I do, of course, want to take advantage of this opportunity since the issue of brown water has come up and remind council the current status of the Oakdale Ruston Grove water main. And as far as we know, the residents in that neighborhood, their water quality is currently meeting or exceeding IEPA and IDPH requirements. We have found a temporary solution to provide them with clear water. So everything should be good for now. Mr. Burkhart has been talking to those residents pretty regularly. And so I think we're in good shape right now until that project can be with design finalized, get EPA approval, bid it, and start construction in the spring. So when we talk about brown water, I think we also have to give the whole message that we have a temporary solution and they aren't experiencing brown water right now. Mr. Burkhart, can you also share?
But Miss, I'm sorry for interrupting, but I only have a limited amount of time. I'm not asking about the Ruston area. I'm asking about anywhere else in town. Are there other complaints?
I understand, and Mr. Burkhart will respond to that. I do want, because there's been quite a bit of conversation about brown water, I think it's important that we actually share the whole story. So that's an important part of the message. Mr. Burkhart, can you fill in about other substandard water main situations?
Yes, we have not received, I guess what I will call significant water complaints. We usually get a complaint during hydrant flushing, which there's a known reason, why that water is stirred up in the area. We're flushing throughout the town, or we will get an occasional brown water complaint again if a water main project is taking place in the vicinity. We usually ask customers at that time when they make the initial complaint, flush your line out, flush your house out. If things do not get better in a week, call us back. We generally do not hear back from the residents. So since we have not heard back from them that the condition still exists, we attribute it to, again, a water main break in the area, hydrant flushing, throughout the town twice a year, or a capital replacement project that's going on. We are not aware of any continuing ongoing areas that have water quality complaints at this time.
Because when I looked through these, there were complaints, but you've rectified them so far, or they haven't deteriorated to the point where they need to be replaced quite yet?
Right. And kind of one of our top priorities, because again, the generally speaking, the water quality complaints can come from the cast iron pipes, the older water mains. So our 4-inch and our 6-inch pipes, those are what we try to replace first.
Yeah, and I hope the public is aware that pipes rusting is not the fault of the water department. That's the fault of Mother Nature, and what happens, this is going to happen, and eventually they'll be replaced. Anything that man makes is going to deteriorate and need maintenance. So I just want the public to realize that that's just a fact of life. And another question then, there's a water capacity upgrade that's listed on here, but it's not recommended. How much excess capacity do we have right now? Because we're putting extensions out to Rivian, to go down to Broman area. I mean, how much excess capacity do we have to serve this growth?
The plant currently has a capacity of 9.6 million gallons as it's rated today. That's just using one of our clarifiers. One of those, part of that project is to combine our 2 clarifiers together. That would allow us to produce up to 12 million gallons of water a day to match the capacity of our filters. Again, at this time, not funded. That's just kind of a big picture looking down the road. I believe that particular item has been listed in the budget since I took over as the director of the water department back in 2016. I've just kind of left it in there as if big development comes to town, there's kind of a mark going forward of things that could be needed if it's needed. At this time today, additional plant capacity is not needed. We can meet daily demand we can meet some future demand if development takes place within town. We're sitting in a good spot capacity-wise with the plant today.
Mr. Burkhardt, if you could share, you indicated that we have $9.6 million or 9.6 million gallon capacity right now. The average daily demand is what, 4.5?
Not quite that much. We've slipped the last couple years. We're probably, I haven't run the numbers to finish out this calendar year yet. We're probably going to be somewhere around 3.7, 3.8 million gallons a day on average. So again, we have a pretty good capacity with the plant itself. We'll need to replace and update some wells to keep that capacity up.
Is there enough capacity to take on the water that Rivian is projecting they're going to need, and then the other businesses that are currently out there on the Bloomington lines? And also then if Broman happens to switch over from Bloomington to Normal, do we have enough capacity without upgrading?
We would have the capacity if either of those businesses wanted to switch to us. I mean, that's news to me. I think we would welcome them as a user, but today, as it sits, we have no plans to serve Broman, Carl, any more than what we already do. We supply the fire protection to the original hospital as it sits today. The city of Bloomington provides the domestic service to that hospital facility. The town of Normal provides domestic and fire suppression to the doctor's office. They're located just on the north side of the atrium to the hospital. And the town of Normal also supplies the domestic and the fire protection to the new birthing center wing. So really the only thing that we don't supply at Carl is just the original hospital footprint.
What about Rivian and then those businesses that are out there that may possibly switch over out on College?
Yeah, right now the only businesses that we supply to out College Avenue is west of the railroad tracks to the corner of College and Wiley. So all those businesses on the north and south side of College Avenue, or east or west side, depending on how you're running there, and down Merle Lane, the town of Normal currently serves all of those facilities. The town did pick up the one Rivian site, which used to be the, I believe, a rail loading office for the Mitsubishi plant, which is up along Electric Avenue. That's, I don't know, 3/4 of a mile away from the city of Bloomington's, any of their services. It was within a couple hundred feet. Actually, we had already served that facility anyway, but the water service had been abandoned. I believe that battery test facility since August has used 720,000 gallons of water. So it's a pretty significant water user out there. Any future development that takes place at the Rivian site, I think it would depend on where the development is at. And then that would probably that'll be a conversation between the city and the town of who serves any new structures out there. You know, does the town want to pursue that to help keep you know, water rates potentially down for citizens in Normal to have a, you know, big commercial user or what? But again, at this time, there's no other known development that's, I guess, known to the public that's taking place out there at this time.
Well, there's $4.75 million for the College Avenue water extension that's allocated for next year. That's a lot of money, and that's going to go right out there and feed, you know, go right along College Avenue out there to Rivian and those couple of warehouses that are out there on the west side of Wiley. So if there's nothing coming out, that's $4.75 million we could use to do some other things. There's some water main replacements, like Risk Drive. The write-up says that it's failure prone. That's not recommended. There's some other things in there. There's Linden and Beach Street. I think it says Pine from Linden to Beach. And the write-up was that it doesn't have adequate supply for fire. and that's like where the Sprague service station's at. And there's some other ones in there too that talk about not enough flow for fire. Why is College Avenue prioritized higher than some of these other ones that have real life safety issues?
Ms. Reese, didn't we take council action to approve the College Avenue?
Well, we asked council to authorize the study. So it's currently being studied this year in terms of a water main extension. Certainly we do not support, we don't expect to have any health safety issues that we wouldn't prioritize as needing attention. Mr. Burkhart can specifically talk about these projects that are unfunded where we talk about fire suppression services. I want to talk briefly before that about the College Avenue project. And when we went to council seeking your support for the study, it was in anticipation of future economic development. We all are very aware that the success of Rivian is highly anticipated to spur additional economic development. We believe it's important to be prepared for that. We don't want any potential businesses or investors looking to come to our community to be delayed by infrastructure needs. So that is what this proposed College Avenue extension is for. Mr. Burkhart, can you address the concerns so that we can alleviate maybe some misunderstanding about fire suppression?
Yes, in general, our water distribution system is in a great position for fire suppression. I believe the fire department completed their ISO training and their certification on that. I don't remember exactly the score that they got. I believe that they were just shy of receiving a top rating in that system. And part of that goes to the availability of water from the distribution system for fire protection services. So in general, the entire town is extremely well covered. There may be a block or two, like that Pine Street. Maybe I don't have our distribution map pulled up right in front of me, so I don't remember that exact project off the top of my head. But it could be that there's a 2-block section of 4-inch main that in that exact area, fire flow is low. Can the fire department pull from a fire hydrant that's a block away and provide that?
Thank you, Mr. Burkhart. We're going to wrap that up. Mr. Nord, if you, we're at the 13.5-minute point here.
Sure.
But I thought it was important that Mr. Burkhart be able to answer your questions. If you have further questions, I'm sure you can email or meet with staff and get the detail on that information.
Then I just have one last question.
Go right ahead.
If we vote this in, are we voting all of these projects in, or do we have a chance to ask questions and change them later? Because I've been told in the past, we've already approved these with this one vote, and this is the time to ask those questions. So I want to know if I'm giving up that right.
Well, is the council giving up that right? I think it's the more fair question, not you giving up the right. And the answer to that is no, because we can change the budget as this council sees fit.
Okay, if I could, just one more question. There's 2 vehicles that were scheduled to be purchased. They were the 2 Rivian deposits. Are those on this sheet?
Mr. Nord, you're well over your time limit, and staff will get back to you on that question if you reach out to them specifically. Mr. McCarthy?
Thanks, Mayor. I know we spent a lot of time. I'll keep my comments very brief. First, I want to thank Mr. Yoon for an amazing job putting this together and all the staff that help, making this a very transparent and accessible process for and information for all citizens out on the web for everybody and the whole world to come click on and get detailed about your infrastructure investment. infrastructure investment and maintenance is cornerstone for what we're doing. And clearly we're spending at 95% of it on capital assets and infrastructure. I just want to have really one question. I noticed on the capital fund and the out years, I think I got my answer from Mr. Heen's comments already, but I just want to double check. I noticed some significant drop-offs in revenues in the out years in the capital fund. I assume that's because of those grant dollars Ms. Reese talked about and Mr. Heen, you talked about earlier, the significant projects that Ms. Reese highlighted. Why that fund was flexible, I just wanted to double check. I think I got that answer, but is that why the revenue funds in the capital and the out years have dropped significantly?
Well, Mr. Hune, I guess I'm going to defer to you. In the capital fund, the current year says beginning available capital funds of 1.25 million. So my guess is we carried over some funds from last year and didn't spend them last year, which means we're starting this year with a significant capital fund balance.
That's correct. We have some carryover, and then also there is some, as we mentioned earlier, there is some grant funding that's in this current year and a little bit in the out year that's going to disappear once those funds are exhausted. And then the funding source for that fund remains the general fund transfer, that we have some limited ability to make those transfers in the out years. So you're seeing a lot of spending in the current year from carryover fund balance. You're seeing some spending in the next year with some of the OSLOD grant for parks. And then when those funds are exhausted, then we're just on the pay-as-you-go process from the general funds, discretionary funds. And that's the drop-off in revenue.
And I'm assuming if we continue to go after grant dollars for other projects, that will be reflected in the out years in the revenue numbers as they are today in the first 2 years.
Correct.
Correct, absolutely. Right now, we're not anticipating any, but you're right. Those come up all the time, and as we're aware of them, we'll program into the 5-year budget. Right now, this is our best look right now, but that of course can change next year.
Great, that answers it. Again, thanks for some excellent reporting and visibility into our capital projects. Appreciate it.
Seeing no further, please call the roll.
Mr. McCarthy.
Aye.
Ms. Cummings.
Aye.
Mr. Nord.
No.
Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz.
Aye.
Mr. Preston.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The motion to approve the community investment plan is passed. Item 9 is a presentation by Cultural Arts and Children's Discovery Museum Director Beth Wisman.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I had asked Ms. Wisman to join our meeting tonight to share with you some of the story of the Cultural Arts Department, particularly during this holiday season. I think there's a lot of information to share with you and certainly with citizens. So Ms. Wisman was happy to join us this evening and kind of fill you in on what's been happening from the cultural arts side of things. Ms. Wisman, thanks for joining us.
Great, thank you so much. Well, so this came about in a conversation with my regular report to Ms. Reese about what we are doing, and we realized that there were quite a few things, one, that you probably have not seen because our doors are closed in our main facilities, and also because there are a couple of holiday activities that are ongoing right now. We want to give the public an extra last chance to take part in that. So I'm going to share my screen and give you an opportunity to look behind the scenes with the Cultural Arts Department and just give you a sense of, what we've been doing during the pandemic and how it's affected us. So many different public and private entities have had to pivot. I feel like we've pivoted and pivoted again, and the rules keep changing. And it's been an interesting year, but certainly we have been able to keep to our mission and serve the community. And we want to tell you a little bit about that. So we have been closed, as you might imagine, since March 14th. So that's about 282 days for the Children's Discovery Museum and the Normal Theater. But just because our doors are closed does not mean that we are not active. And we have served almost 30,000 people so far in 2020. A good deal of that has been through our education outreach and working to make sure that families who are dealing with remote learning in particular have good access to STEAM activities. So that's science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And we were able to procure funding to provide 8,000 free STEAM activity kits over several points during the shelter at home, over the summer, and getting ready for back to school. We have been working for a while now on our reopening protocols and our training to be ready to open up the sites when the Restore Illinois guidelines allow that to happen. And we are just waiting for that next opportunity. I mentioned the private dollars, about $28,000 so far in private grants that we've been awarded for our education outreach, which we're really excited about. But also we've been doing lots of work on the building. So when you have 140,000 visitors on a regular basis coming through your building, it's rare that you have a few months to do big projects all at once. So we decided when it became evident that we were not going to be able to reopen easily, we have just continued with some of our own facilities improvements, exhibit improvements. You can see in the upper left-hand corner, this is a new barn that we're building in our Ag Mazing exhibit that is going to allow us to move something from the first floor to the second floor. And that is also a space that we've been using for our in-person programming. It's been fun. We refinished our walking piano. You see the electric static gun that we were using with facilities maintenance training to be ready for quick cleans and sanitizing between our small groups that come into play. And our CDM store has really been vital for the museum to help us keep a front door to the public, providing access to our take-home kits and curbside service, as well as our in-store sales opportunities. And of course, with facilities maintenance helping us out, we've been able to alter that site. So you can see that activity there in the lower right-hand corner. This is just a quick look at something that is a really good example of you can play on it until it literally starts to fall apart. We refinished the floor of our Imagination Theater stage floor so that we could be ready when we reopen. It's had a lot of kids treading the boards. And then we decided to move forward with our Healthy Me project. This was the privately funded exhibit that is going to focus on big surprise in this year, public health and how to remain healthy as a community. And what I loved about this experience that really became a silver lining for us is that our team really got stronger in a lot of ways. You can see in that upper right, left or left corner, that is Rachel and John, so our education manager and our exhibits manager, working very closely together. We found out in this process that she had a really good eye for construction documents. And so we were sharing new skills with each other because we were at this point in that completely closed down phase. We were doing a lot of our design work with our design team remotely on computer, as you can see there in the lower corner. And we were having to really rely on each other a lot in whole new ways to be able to get this project done. There were a few delays because of some supplies, but for the most part, we were able to get done. And you're really getting one of the first public views of the space that is currently behind drapes. So this is Healthy Me, and we're going to be opening up as soon as possible in 2021 when it's safe. And with the hospitals being our partners on this exhibit, I feel confident they will give us good guidance on when they feel comfortable opening up the space for small groups as well as eventually larger groups. For the theater, facilities worked with us as well as IT and finance. We had to make some pretty big adjustments to get ready for more touchless sales and to be able to bring the concession stand out of the actual theater space back into the lobby. That would help us with traffic flow. That would help us with a lot of the safety protocols that were becoming necessary for COVID-19 and beyond. So you're getting a look there at what the inside the lobby looks right now. If you haven't been to a viewing yet, we did open up in October in part of normal, but most of our activity has been virtual this year. And that has not been as successful as we would have imagined, but it does give relevant opportunities to keep serving our mission and keep top of mind as we wait for the new year. We were prepared for holiday showings, and unfortunately that just did not happen. And we were very disappointed because I believe we would have sold out every show. We did sell out our Rocky Horror Picture Show every time we showed it. I believe that would have been the case for classics like White Christmas. I mentioned our STEAM kits. So I just wanted to give you just a quick look at the types of organizations that we've been serving despite our doors being closed to the public. We have been serving Unit 5, District 87, Boys and Girls Club, Heartland Head Start, Unity Community Center, Scott Early Learning Center, Bloomington Daycare, and the Young Wonders program at the YWCA. And why that's important is that these are groups that are serving the most at-risk youth in our community. They are helping out families that are having economic, struggles, but also with the remote learning. I think everyone, regardless of who you are, where you come from, it's not been an easy process. And so working with the school districts and providing these services has not only met our goals, but also I think it really has served the community well. And we've done this with our full-time staff, again, committing and working extra and just making sure that we're able to make these bags work. But also, as you see in the lower picture, that's Marlene Dietz. She's one of our board members and a longtime volunteer for the museum. We had quite a bit of volunteer opportunities, safe and distanced, but just the same volunteers who are helping us meet this growing need. That's just an image of our backpack delivery that we did with Unit 5 schools. Jenny, who the mayor referenced earlier, she's been with the town for 15 years. She was one of our educators on site that day, handing out the backpacks, and it was just great. The families really appreciated it. Some revenue streams we've actually been able to maintain in the closure include our Halloween event that we did. We actually sold that out. Our Camp in a Box was a really good option for families who didn't feel comfortable during the summer when we did our in-person programming, as well as our free resources that are still available on our website at childrensdiscoverymuseum.net. We offer a daily dose of play, and we will continue to do that as winter months set in so that families, teachers, etc., have some support for at-home learning. And then you look at our revenue streams for foundation events and our store. I mentioned that. Our store is open, by the way, for the holidays, just a couple of more days, tomorrow and Wednesday. We have had a very successful year given all of the challenges. So that has been great. Doctors in Concert happened in September after a delay, and we actually raised more money with Doctors in Concert than we have ever raised in a virtual event, which is fantastic. And then our craft beer and jazz event that traditionally is held in Uptown as a fundraiser has actually really worked well for as a bingo game over the summer. And we made twice as much money working with our local brewers to promote this event as we did last year in the in-person event. So I think this is definitely something we're going to keep doing in a different capacity. So that was another silver lining for us. Collaborations have been really important for us, not only just to, again, serve our community, but also to remain relevant and in front of our community, as well as our members, and keep our mission of the power of play in front of the public. So we partnered with Easter Seals as they had their interactive art. We hosted that for their first weekend during the holiday open house in Uptown Normal. We are a collection site for the Book Showers of Literacy, which is going on right now. We just now wrapped up our Zoom with Santa. We sold out all of our spots, and that was a great revenue stream for us, as well as just the feedback from parents on this was super positive. Not only were they happy to be able to have the tradition of meeting Santa Claus and talking, but a lot of people, and I witnessed this myself, they really felt like having the virtual experience gave kids a completely different experience with Santa Claus. They were comfortable. The intimidation factor was much less. Sensory issues were not as much of a problem. And families and kids really got into talking to Santa on a whole new level. One kid gave him a piano recital. So it was really different this year. And we will probably look at ways to try to continue to do that next year. Also still going on right now in Uptown Normal is our reindeer riddles. We partnered with Uptown Partners, so the stores and restaurants in Uptown Normal. They are putting the riddles in their windows. So this can be a completely hands-free, completely social distance family activity. And you can do it for free if you want to play in Uptown Normal, or if you would like to try for the $500 jackpot, you can pay $15 for the official card and have that in the window. or have that in your pocket as you're going through, and then we will actually have our drawing in January. So we will do this through the end of the month, and tickets are still available again online at our website, as well as the store tomorrow and Wednesday. I mentioned the theater. So we've been closed and we've been doing virtual offerings. And we do have a couple of holiday films right now that you can watch on normaltheater.com. But also we've been having some fun on social media. We did a holiday bracket. So if you are interested, we're still doing this on Twitter. It had a lot of positive feedback from our users. And I think that we had a controversial win yesterday. I'm pretty sure the Muppet Christmas Carol beat White Christmas. I don't know how that happened, but we'll figure that out. And then finally, our Uptown Holiday Window. So this was something that we decided to do as a way to replace our Santa's station. We could not conceive putting children in the lap of Santa and exposing everyone given all the protocols. So pretty early on, Adam Fox in our Cultural Arts Department, the two of us started talking about what the possibilities were going to be. We'd already been talking about doing some projection-based art installations and experiment a little bit. So we decided this was the year to try it. We partnered with Parks and Rec, of course, with the holiday lights and the trees. Illinois State University partnered with us. Their School of Dance helped out actually with some set design. Pete Geither is a projection specialist, and he helped us take all of the publicly submitted images and put that on, as well as the collection from the McLean County Museum of History. I couldn't show you the window projections as easily as some of the images. It's clearly for you to see the type of thing that we're sharing here. But these are images from McLean County, from our local history, and we're sharing those in our windows of Uptown Normal, as well as our local families who are sharing their story. And then we were also able to still honor our tradition that we started a few years back with the NAACP in town. This is a weekend that we do to honor Merlin Kennedy, the late Merlin Kennedy, who was Black Santa in 1966 in the local Christmas parade. He was stopped from being in the parade, so he got down from the float and walked the streets as Black Santa, and he was honored by the History Museum as a history maker. So he has been part of our holiday tradition in sharing that story. So by teaming up with the History Museum and teaming up with the town, we were able to still honor his legacy. And then hopefully you've seen in the news recently that we are going to hold a virtual New Year's Eve event at the Children's Discovery Museum. This is something that really came from collaborations. We've been working with about 12 to 15 other museums in Indiana and Illinois over the last 9 months, trying to get ready for reopening, communicating with the Restore Illinois Committee, rewriting policies so that we're all consistent across the board, and really just leaning on each other as professional resources. And when we realized that our replacement event that was going to be outdoors in Uptown Normal had to be canceled, we really just could not see not providing something for our families for our noon year tradition. So this is the thing where we do our big countdown for kids at the noon hour. And we decided that we were going to team up as a group and share the resources, the cost, so that we can make this happen. So the Decatur Children's Museum, as well as our museum, worked together to recruit the other museums to produce a video with a band performing a dance party. And then we're going to take all of the families to the different sites across these different museums on New Year's Eve. And with support from the Town of Normal IMT department, we're going to be able to provide that support for these families all across the area. And, you know, we talk about our outreach. This is really going to be fun for families in McLean County, but because we were able to get a sponsor from Commerce Bank and Commerce Trust Company, and because of our situation with the town having our resources available, we're going to be serving kids in multiple counties. We're talking possibly tens of thousands of children who are going to have access to this. And so I love the idea of the Town of Normal and the Children's Discovery Museum and all of the staff of the Cultural Arts Department coming together to really serve well beyond our borders. And I think that's important. And it certainly does speak well to us as a community, but also to the power of play. What we can look forward to in the coming year, we're planning with Normal Public Library to help them put together a story walk in Uptown Normal. So that kind of replaces the Reindeer Riddles activity, more social distance outdoor activities for families. We've already been told that we are going to receive about $22,000 in grants to continue the type of outreach that we've been doing already. And beyond that, we have applied for even more money to try to continue to pivot. We know that we don't expect field trips to return in person for quite some time. We have to give the vaccine time to take effect. We have to give the school districts time to get comfortable with the idea of even gathering together again, much less going on a field trip. So we need to start, we've already started working on making our resources available in a virtual capacity. And so we've put in some money to request for money to try to help make that happen for our local schools. We're also, of course, looking internally at our structure. You know, we have goals and a strategic plan that we need to revisit and see how this fits in with a larger strategic plan for the town. And we're planning, you know, what to do in the summer as hopefully things start getting a little bit better and we have a return of outdoor festivals and concerts. What that timeline looks like right now is still very much in the air, but I'm confident we will see a return of those things in 2021. And then, of course, hopefully, again, you've seen the news recently. We were awarded, the Children's Discovery Museum was awarded $568,700 to replace the Lucky Climber. And this is a general concept of what we're doing. So this new design will be easier to clean in post-COVID times, but also I believe will be much more accessible and still give people access to new spaces that help kids feel a thrill and do some risk assessment and just really give them an opportunity to play in the space in a whole new way. So we're really excited about that. And we might even be able to start the process of demolition while the museum is closed, which again, a silver lining. So we're always looking for that opportunity to make improvements. And we just wanted to make sure that you were aware as a community what we are offering up, what is still available. We really invite you to come uptown and see the windows. It takes about 10 minutes so that you're not going to freeze. Just 10 minutes to sit there and watch the videos. These images came in from the public. These images came in from our community partners. And it's just a small piece of what we're doing as a department that maybe you haven't seen behind our closed doors. So I appreciate the opportunity to tell you a little bit about it and shine a light on our staff, because for a very small staff, I've been blown away at the positive attitudes, you know, coming to work every single day with the attitude of we're going to serve our community and our families. We are going to provide these alternatives and help and survey our teachers and our educators. We've worked with the United Way Youth Programming Committee and actually come up with some solutions to help them and bring people together. It's just really been amazing. And I'm just really proud of our team, and for us to lead this effort with the New Year's Eve event. We couldn't be ending the year stronger. So given the pandemic, things are going well as far as us trying to meet our mission of serving the public. So thank you for the time, and I am happy to answer questions if you would like to ask me.
Thank you, Beth. Mayor, you're muted.
Thank you, Beth. That was an incredible presentation, and it shows how resourceful and creative you and your department staff are in terms of staying viable in a world that really tried to isolate you from the general public in terms of having to be closed. And it's incredible the amount of things you've accomplished and the outreach you've done. So kudos to you and your staff for the great work. Kevin?
Yeah, Mayor took most of the words right out of my mouth. Wow. Congratulations on all those great successes, and thanks for the creativity of adapting in this pandemic time. And it's you know, it's truly amazing to hear you talk about increased support for the CDM during this time for your events and the creative ways. You know, we participated in craft beer bingo, and what a really great partnership. You know, talking with some of the local breweries, they were excited because it was helped them, and it also helped some strong funding for the CDM. Real win-win partnership. So congratulations for all of that. some really creative stuff you're doing and some improvements it seems like you're making. Have you discovered new things that you're planning to continue beyond the COVID era that will help you go forward?
Yeah, I do think that we will continue some things. So our virtual concert for Doctors in Concert brought in audiences from California, New York, Canada. Our local physicians are from all over the country and beyond. And their circles of influence and support are, again, well beyond McLean County. So they were selling tickets and raising money for, the Children's Discovery Museum and all these other places because the virtual concert gave them a window for their friends and family to watch. And they loved it. So we will likely continue to offer a virtual component. We also had a lot of families who told us they just really liked, their kids enjoyed watching the concert, but they wouldn't typically come into that traditional, quiet grown-up setting to do that. So definitely that's what the committee would like to do. I mentioned earlier that Zoom with Santa was very successful for our families. We will definitely continue to do that. And, I just think we're going to continue to stretch ourselves a little bit. One of the things that we did early in the pandemic was do a white sheet for our department and say, what are our skills that are maybe our hidden skills or things that we don't already use for our day-to-day work at the museum or at the theater that might help other departments. And so, we started listing out our video production skills and our writing skills and social media. So before we had a communications director, we were helping the communications team with a lot of this stuff. And that really has continued on since Kathy Olofsson arrived. And we've really enjoyed that. And we'll keep looking for those opportunities. And then partnerships I mentioned as well, like just working so much more closely with our local educators.
Thank you. That kind of brings up the only other kind of curiosity I had watching this. So you're obviously preparing for the post-pandemic era. Clearly.
As best we can.
Yeah, right. I mean, clearly you've shown us some facility type things and cleanliness type things. Talk to me a little bit about, how you plan to communicate with the public about opening up and safety and all of that when you get there. Have you thought about those things yet already about how do we get the word out and how do you ensure that people know what's happening?
Yeah, so Kathy's team, communications team, is working with us to create a rollout plan for when we know for sure we can reopen. But we're also doing a lot of communication directly with our families, with our patrons. We're using surveys to help us find what they're comfortable with, what they're not comfortable with. We've been using that the whole way through the pandemic so far, but we'll continue to do that to get public input. Also, e-blasts, social media, all the traditional types of communication. And then honestly, we're using some of the downtime for some handwritten communication and personal phone calls with our bigger donors to just make sure they know what we're up to and again, ask what we can do, especially for the businesses that traditionally support us that are maybe struggling themselves. We've turned that around for them to say, what can we do to help you? Which is kind of where we got the idea for the craft beer bingo is, this was driving business to breweries who had been supportive of us in the past. The uptown businesses with reindeer riddles that have supported us in the past. Now we're supporting them.
Wow. Again, thank you. I'll stop there and let anybody else have a chance. Thanks.
Mr. Nord.
Thank you. I think I'm on. I've had a couple people say that the windows that were done in Uptown, they've requested if we have to do this next year, instead of spending all the money in Uptown, to spread it out in the community. Maybe if there's a park that lights could go up or something to kind of share the Christmas spirit further out, because there's a lot of folks that may drive by these parks or just not go into Uptown and completely miss it. So I thought that, hopefully we don't have to do it next year, but if we do, that was some citizen feedback. A question or a couple questions. So you guys have been closed for quite a long time. Could you speak to if you've had any staff reductions or any furloughs that you've had to do?
Yeah, so we laid off about 40 people that were part-time help beyond. I mean, almost all of the work that we've done. We do have some benefits earning part-time by definition staff that remain. So that's 8 people. And all the work that I was listing pretty much is being done by the full-time staff. So all of our floor staff, all of our play facilitators, all of our, unless we were operating like the theater, we were open for the month of October, none of those people are working with us anymore. And we check in with them, but yeah, most of them have either moved on or some of them even were college students that graduated and moved on, but it's about 40 people.
And those were just part-time. Were any full-time positions affected?
No, that's bigger than my decision making.
No,
Okay.
and if I could jump in and supplement that, Mr. Nord, just as a reminder, they have served 30,000 people this year. So their full-time staff has really been quite busy trying to pivot and adapt and come up with programming to support their operations this year.
And a lot of our traditional programming that our revenue streams have performed very well.
Yeah, just because, well, I guess the question would be, you know, I feel bad for cultural arts because you're in that group of what's considered non-essential, you know, and we've got lots of businesses that are considered non-essential that have had to make really tough decisions because they run out of money. You know, they literally now have to think about how do they lose less money. And have you had to make any of those decisions because, you know, you don't have customers coming in? I mean, is there anything you can speak to so that way our constituents kind of know that, you know, you do have tough decisions you need to make?
Are you talking about specific budget cuts or people working nights and weekends? I mean, I can tell you that our Santa Zooms were spread out over about 5 days, and our full-time staff worked their regular full-time days, and then they all came in and split 3-hour shifts to make sure that we can provide our families with that service. When we did our Halloween Hoopla event, that was spread over 4 days, including a weekend. And we were planning on doing the same thing for Jammies and Jingles for the holiday season, only the Restore Illinois events protocol changes had to cancel that in-person event. But yeah, I mean, we've all been working a lot more hours. We've been working non-traditional hours to be able to serve our families. The collaborations that we're talking about often are happening in the evenings and on weekends. Those STEAM kits that we talk about, it's not heavy lifting, but it is a lot of work to put together 8,000 kits with 8 people. It is a lot of work. And there's a reason we had to spread it out over several different time periods, because not only were we seeking funding to cover the cost of that for supplies, but also because, you know, it just is time consuming. And again, that was relying on nights and weekends and just not letting down our schools and our teachers because they were relying on us. We've continued to, we've actually, you know, had a successful season in the store. It's not as successful as usual, obviously, but that's been a very nice revenue stream for us into the year. And then, you know, when the foundation, our nonprofit foundation that works with us, you know, when they need support and they need quite a bit of it, you know, they're not coming together for in-person meetings. They're meeting remotely and relying on staff to do the things we need to do to support the ideas and the fundraising they're coming up with. So, you know, I'm really proud to say that the foundation is going to meet its obligation for its annual commitment for funding the Cultural Arts Department through the Children's Discovery Museum to the tune of about $100,000. So, you know, we've made tough decisions and we've certainly made personal sacrifices to be able to do the things that need to be done, definitely. And you know what, you know, when you look 40 people in the eye and let them know that people who've worked with us for years as play facilitators, as theater staff, people who are committed to our families and children and tell them that their job's not coming back for at least a year, which means they're going to move on, you know, that's heartbreaking. But that is part of what we've had to do.
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that because that is exactly what a lot of the business owners have to tell their wait staff and things as well. So I'm glad you pointed that out because you're feeling a little bit of the heartbreak that business owners have to do in the decisions. So
We've been
thank you
feeling
for sharing
heartbreak
that.
since almost the beginning. You know, we have 1,700 households in McLean County that are members of the museum, and I mean, you talk to any of them, and they'll tell you their children want to come back and they want to play in person, and they're frustrated. And so we're managing that relationship a lot and helping families understand.
That is absolutely true. I've got kids and we love going to the Discovery Museum. You know, we travel to go to them because they're fantastic places to go. And you're right, you know, the kids miss it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Cummings.
Thank you, Mayor. Councilman McCarthy actually stole my question, but I'll add the point that I wanted to make too in asking that question. First, by saying thank you. I know a couple families who have benefited from your thoughtfulness, your innovation, your consistency with the educational activities and the STEAM kits. And so those are things that I'm hoping will continue because they have been very helpful. And so, you know, from hearing from those families who have benefited from it, it's certainly one of those things that makes me proud. The Children's Discovery Museum will always have a soft spot in my heart, you know, because it's where I kind of began here in the town of Normal. So, but yes, I do hope that many of the things that you all have worked on and have come up with continue as we move forward, even beyond pandemic times, because you know we're starting to see the value in some of these ideas and continue to innovate. I think if nothing else, we could take this as a way of coming up with more ideas, being creative, continuing to find supporters, as well as being able to be a resource for all students within our community.
Yeah, our theater staff are both trained in video production and had other careers before arriving with the town of Normal, and we have significantly benefited from them crossing over into the other part of the department to help us to be able to do some of this outreach. And they're a big part of the video production for the New Year's Eve event, and they will be key for us moving forward with our field trips.
And Ms. Smith.
I hope I'm not violating any campaign restrictions, but in mentioning the brackets for the movies, you mentioned specifically the upset of the Muppet movie, beating out, which one?
I think it was White Christmas that just broke today. I was reading on Twitter.
I had heard on WGLT this morning that Die Hard almost bumped It's a Wonderful Life. Please tell me that It's a Wonderful Life is still in the running.
It is. It did survive Die Hard.
Okay, so for all the It's a Wonderful Life fans, and you know who you are because my family is there every Christmas Eve when it's running. I can almost do the dialogue with the actors. Please vote for that movie. It's got Jimmy Stewart in it. How can you miss? And so it's an important thing, and I thank you for all you do.
Well, it's not me, I assure you. I'm part of it, but the staff has just been great. And I hope that you're proud of them as much as I am, because they pulled it together and just really have done good work.
Thank you, Ms. Wisman. That was kind of an uplifting way to get through the end of this meeting here. That's just, I think everybody feels really good about the work that you and your staff are doing. Thank you. Item 10 is a motion to approve appointments and reappointments to various boards, commissions, and committees.
Move approval.
Thank you.
Second.
And I have a
Ms. Lorenz.
Yes. With the motion that's on the table, could I ask that it be broken into three separate votes for the three different appointees?
Mr. McCarthy, and are you willing to withdraw your motion?
Sure.
Thank you. And who seconded?
I did.
Would you?
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I don't think
Yes.
we need a withdrawal.
Okay.
That's just a motion to divide the question. If there's an objection, if there's no objection to the motion, it can proceed automatically to the 3 votes. If there is an objection, then we would proceed to a vote on the motion.
So we're in agreement to separate. I don't need to call a roll vote on that one, do I?
As long as there's no objection.
Seeing no objection, we'll separate. And frankly, I don't have my paperwork. I know we will start in the order that I think they came to me. The first would be
Michael Pederini, Mayor.
Yeah, exactly.
Regional Planning.
Pederini for Regional Planning Commission. Please call the roll.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. That appointment is approved. The second in the order that they came to me would be Ms. Rachel Lund for Planning Commission. Please call the roll.
Mr. Nord, you're muted, Mr. Nord.
I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I had my hand up for a question.
There's actually no discussion per Robert's.
Before a vote?
There's no discussion on appointments.
My question, we don't get to ask questions before a vote?
Not on an appointment. Mr. Day, would you flesh that out, please?
Under this, there can be discussion under this motion.
My misunderstanding then. I thought you had told me earlier that there could not be discussion.
There isn't for hiring, but there can be for, these are not employees. Since these are appointed positions.
So you have a question on the first appointment, Mr. Nord?
Yes.
Go right ahead.
It's for you. Could you explain your reasoning for, well, I had spoken with the appointees, and this one you had reached out to, you didn't advertise to the public. She didn't submit a request to be on the board. And I'm not questioning her qualifications or anything. This is more your reasoning for appointing her. Why?
Are we talking about Mr. Pederini?
No, this is the Planning Commission appointment that you had announced.
Have we not finished the vote on Mr. Pederini?
We did just vote for Mr. Pederini.
Did we finish the vote? Thank you. All right. So your question is on Ms. Lund.
Yes. Why did you not solicit people that wanted to take this position versus just reach out to find someone?
People did apply for Planning Commission. We have a list of people that asked to be on Planning Commission. And I thought Ms. Lund was fully capable of doing the job and had the interest in doing the job.
Did any of the other applicants have experience with planning and zoning?
No. It's a citizens committee, Mr. Nord. We don't look for expertise in planning.
Oh, because they had interest and she had not expressed interest. That is
not true, Mr. Nord. She did express interest.
Okay. I mean, I had a conversation. This is why I'm asking, and I would prefer to see people that have an interest,
Ms. Lund had an interest.
Have a chance.
Ms. Lund had an interest, Mr. Nord.
Had she submitted an application before you asked?
Yes.
Okay, well then she told me completely the opposite when I spoke with her. So there's a disconnect there, and that's why I question this appointee or your recommended appointment.
Where are we are in the roll call, Ms. Honker?
The second appointment, which I believe would be Ms. Lund.
And we have not.
We have not called.
All right, please call the roll.
Mr. Nord,
No.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
No.
Mr. Preston,
No.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye, the appointment is approved. Our third appointment is Mr. Mandava Rao for Connect Transit Board. Please call the roll.
I got my hand up.
Mr. Nord, I'm sorry, I just saw that. Go right ahead.
Okay. I spoke with this appointee as well. He just recently moved back to the community a month ago. And this is the Connect Transit appointment. He was not aware of SEFT, any of the recent issues that have been bubbling up about Connect Transit. Didn't realize how many people did not ride the bus or were not on the bus. I mean, I think he's got a heart to serve. He really does have a heart to serve. It's just there's been lots of folks that have asked to be appointed to this position. When this position was vacant before, you waited over a year to appoint someone. And there were lots of people that had requested to be on the board that have a passion to fix the Connect Transit issues that, you know, the disabled, the low income, you know, all these folks have been expressing for so long. So why did you bypass all these other resumes and go for someone that, again, didn't ask to be on the Connect Transit board, but was asked?
I thought Mr. Rao would be an excellent choice for the board. But there's an opportunity to disagree with that vote no.
What was wrong with all the other applicants?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Okay, because I feel that we should have people that have a passion to fix the problems that are out there so they can hit the ground running. And again, this is not anything against Mr. Rao. It's just there's people that have a passion and want to do it. So that's why I can't support this appointee either.
So your assumption is Mr. Rao is not up to the job to have passion for the job.
I'm saying there are more experienced people, and I'm asking you why you chose not to consider them over someone that's not passionate about the Connect Transit issues.
Please call the roll.
There's time for other people to ask questions too.
But I don't see any hands up, Mr. Nord.
Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
No.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. The appointment is approved. That covers our appointments, doesn't it, Mr. McCarthy? If you would give us some background on those individuals.
Absolutely. Let's see. In the order we talked about them, for the McLean County Regional Planning, Michael Pederini. Mr. Pederini's been a resident of McLean County since 1990 and currently resides in Normal with his wife, Kate, excuse me. He's employed by State Farm, has experience in facilities management, leadership, project management, budgeting, data analytics, and property management. He was originally appointed in March of this year to fill a vacant seat, and now will be appointed to a full term on the Regional Planning Commission to assist them in moving forward in responsible and sustainable growth trajectory, ensuring benefit to all residents. Second was for the Normal Planning Commission, Ms. Rachel Lund. Ms. Lund will fill a vacancy created by Mr. Shields, who relocated outside of the community, outside of Normal rather. Ms. Lund's a Normal resident, also employed by State Farm. Through State Farm, she's involved with the Women's Networking Group, as well as the User Experience Research Group. She previously worked as an engineer of human systems integration at the Naval Service Warfare Center in Dahlgren, Virginia. Some of her accomplishments while she was at the Warfare Center include serving as the Department Chair of Diversity and Inclusion and the Social Media Manager of the Human Factors Engineering Technical Advisory Group. Ms. Lund is eager to become involved with and serve on the Planning Commission. And then third in our discussion was for the Connect Transit Board. Mr. Rao, he'll fill a vacancy created by the resignation of Mr. McCurdy, who did relocate outside of the community. As a reminder, Mr. Rao was the Town of Normal Citizen of the Year in 2016. He was also recognized by the Telugu Association of North America with a prestigious service award in 2017 at their 21st annual convention for rendering services on a national level. Amanda was a founding member of the Minority and Police Partnership, an active leader within Not in Our Town, past president of the McLean County Indian Association, and has served as chairperson for the Town of Normal's Human Relations Commission. Manava is founded and helps to lead numerous organizations, including the Central Illinois Cricket Association, For a Better Tomorrow, the Telugu Association of Bloomington Normal, which focuses on awareness and promotion of Telugu culture in Central Illinois. He's also founded multiple organizations that help youth explore their heritage through traditional language. He helps out with Kite Fest, a wonderful festival here in the community that helps to raise funds to support non-profit organizations that focus on the needs of children in emerging nations.
Thank you. Before taking a motion for adjournment, are there comments or concerns? Ms. Smith?
Before I do that, were there any public comments at this section of the meeting?
There were not.
Okay, thank you. Well, I just want to take this opportunity as the last council meeting for 2021 to, first of all, extend best wishes to friends in the Jewish community who have already completed celebrating Hanukkah. Tonight is the winter solstice, and we had a clear sky, and there was an opportunity to see the conjunction of the two planets. I believe it was Jupiter and Saturn. But don't worry if you missed it. It should be around in another 800 years. And to everyone, just best wishes for a holiday, and know that since this is the winter solstice, the days are only going to get longer from this point forward. So hang in there, stay safe, and let's all hope that 2021 is much better than 2020.
Thank you. Ms. Cummings.
I guess I'm piggybacking a little bit off of Councilwoman Smith. Just wanted to certainly wish everyone a happy holidays, especially after coming off of Hanukkah. We are going into the Christmas holiday, as well as Kwanzaa and the New Year. So wanting to acknowledge those who celebrate all those holidays. We have had a long year, and I think there's a lot that we've learned together. And I hope that we can continue to grow as a community together as we move into 2021 and stay positive. There's still much work to be done overall, but take this time to spend it with family safely. So if you need to do virtual, please, we're encouraging that you do virtual celebrations. I know it's hard. I'm somebody who lives alone, and all of my family does not live in this state. So we'll be doing a lot of FaceTime over the holiday season. But please be safe, but still try to spend that precious time that you have with one another. Have a wonderful holiday, everybody.
Ms. Lorenz?
Thank you. I'm gonna kind of change up the tone here a little bit. And I want to give voice to an issue that I learned a lot more about today that I think is of great concern. It has to do with the COVID virus. And that issue is the problem in our nursing homes. I learned today that 60% of the deaths from COVID in our county are specifically from nursing homes. And I know that there's been a lot of passion and concern for restaurants and bars and small businesses and the impact that this disease is having on their establishments and their livelihoods. And I don't want to take away from the hardships that they are feeling as small business owners and employees of those businesses. But I think it's worth giving some microphone time to the fact that many people in our nursing homes, an alarming number of people, of residents in our nursing homes, are losing their lives. And I just am a little bit baffled as to why there isn't more questioning around that. And as much energy and passion as we've had with emails and so forth about some of the other establishments, I wish we would have some of the same jumping up and down and concern for this other matter going on in the nursing homes. Literally, people are dying in our nursing homes. They, I don't know, the image that comes to my mind is that they're trapped inside of a burning building. And I am concerned about that. And I want to raise awareness and concern and urge people who are in positions of leadership and closer to the situation than I am to begin asking questions. With that, thank you very much.
Mr. Nord.
Just like to echo a little bit of what Councilperson Lorenz had said as well. I've got family that have passed living in nursing homes. And you know, it tears at your heart that they literally feel like they are in prison. They cannot see their family members. They can't leave their rooms. You know, when we get old, we're all going to end up passing at some point. And we shouldn't have to have the choice of, well, we shouldn't have to pass without being able to at least, you know, give our loved ones one last hug. But that does kind of segue a little bit into what I was going to talk about too. We've got the holidays here. Lots of people are traveling. We're going to be seeing lots of pictures of people on Facebook when they're out and about, you know, wherever they're at, wherever they go. Lots of people in Florida, Hawaii, California, gosh, wherever. But look at those pictures. And we need to realize that we're not in this bubble. Or I guess Illinois is in this bubble where we have our restaurants closed. But if you look at the pictures, people are traveling. They're going to restaurants. They're going out to eat. They're being around other people. You know, lots of people are still wearing masks, but businesses are not shuttered everywhere outside of Illinois. You know, Texas, we've got lots of friends that we all probably know that work for State Farm that have now moved to Texas. Give them a call. Ask them what things are like down there. And look at those pictures. Indoor dining is not something that is restricted everywhere. If you want to go dine, step outside of normal. Go to one of our neighboring towns. There's lots of restaurants that are open. And if you think that this is such a huge problem, this is from the Illinois State Department of Health's website. this is the graph showing the problems. Restaurants are not on there. So please don't think that we're in this bubble just because one person, our governor, has told us that we're in dire straits and we have to shut down all of our restaurants and bars, because look around the country, you know, it's not happening elsewhere. And people say, well, follow the science. You know, this is the Department of Health website. They don't know how much more scientific we can get. This is the outbreak locations over the past 30 days. Ms. Lorenz was right about the group homes. You know, they have the largest percentage, and it's not just nursing homes, but restaurants are not on there. It goes group homes, correctional facilities, community events, then independent senior support living, which I guess would be what Ms. Lorenz was talking about. Then first responder workplaces, medical clinics, and dental offices. Restaurants are not on there. 0 outbreaks, according to the state. This is for our region. If you pull out the state region, they're not on there either. You know, it breaks down a lot smaller. So, and then look on Facebook, your friends and family. And, you know, everybody else that's watching, I hope you guys have a good Christmas and a Happy New Year. And thank you.
Mr. McCarthy?
Sure. Thanks, Mayor. I do want to add a comment that's roughly related to the last couple. And mostly for those that don't think that or are working to understate the reality of what we're experiencing here. 2 weeks ago, when we met here and had a discussion about how do we try to protect business and public health at the same time, just know that almost 30 McLean County residents are no longer alive since that meeting 2 weeks ago. Those are numbers being reported in the panagraph. I didn't make those numbers up. It's just pulled out of the panagraph and from the county health department, the state health department. What I hope is that, and good news here is that we don't have to choose between community health and business. You guys are probably tired of hearing me talk about federal relief packages and contacting our federal delegation. The good news is yesterday we heard that they've likely come to an agreement and have a support package coming to help our local businesses, and that's the really good news. Hopefully that helps our local businesses like it did in the spring get through this surge and get to the other side so they can get back to more normal operations. On the more positive, lighter side, appropriate with the holiday, I want to say thanks to all of our residents. You know, I've seen so many creative ways that everybody is supporting each other this holiday season. You know, right now, as we roll into a typical time where we're of lighter heart and better cheer. But throughout this whole pandemic, it's been wonderful to see neighbors supporting neighbors and people figuring out how to support businesses. And I just want to thank the community for, we've all been struggling through this, but for trying to figure out how to support each other as best we can. I also want to thank town staff and administration. I think we've all been, I know this council has through our conversations and our topics on our agenda, been focused on doing the best we can for our community. I think it's easy to lose sight that town staff are also feeling the consequences of the pandemic. So I just want to say to everybody at the town, I greatly appreciate all that you've done with fewer staff, fewer resources, cut budgets to keep our community running so very smoothly during all of this, as if almost nothing was happening for public services. So thank you to town staff and administration for all you've done during all of this to keep our community running so well. Happy holidays, everybody. Be safe and take care.
Mr. Preston.
Thanks, Mayor. Common theme to my other esteemed colleagues tonight. I'll wrap up with this. 2020, no doubt, has been a long year for all of us in the community and around the country. In many cases, I think it's hopefully been one of the longest years, or felt like one of the longest years of most people's lives. And while our problems won't magically go away or get smaller come the changing of the calendar on January 1st, I do hope, and will be doing for myself, that the holidays bring an opportunity for all of us to kind of take a deep breath, take in how much the world has changed this year, be thankful and appreciative of all that we do have and all those that we do have, and mindful of people who no longer have family members or friends that they did at the start of 2020. And also going into 2021, something else that I'm reminded of along these same lines is that every person's life is valuable, and that every individual has worth and is deserving of respect and dignity. And I hope that 2021 brings about new opportunities for all of us, all those watching, and the many others who aren't, to try and work together in improving our community and our families and our country. Thanks.
And Ms. Reese.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a few things that I wanted to share with council to wrap up the meeting and really to wrap up 2020. So thank you for the opportunity to say a couple of things. Wanted to share with council some information about what our employee group has been up to recently. I think it ties in a little bit with some recent comments made during concerns here. First thing I wanted to share with is historically town employees have supported an event called Sharing Tree, where we contribute funds, and then we do some shopping and we go out and support families with gifts and food baskets. This year, because historically the families that we get connected with come to us from Unity Center, we had to change up the program a little bit because Unity Center is closed. So this year, on very short notice, we had an opportunity to put a program together using our employee donations towards this fund. And I wanted to take a moment to thank Jessica Ryan from the police department and Ladine Finley from facilities and energy management. And they worked closely with City Clerk Angie Hunker and our CARES team, and were able to put together basically some support, some family activities and gifts for 10 local families within the foster care system. And our employees contributed over $1,100. That's how much we had in the Sharing Tree Fund. And things like car seats, hygiene and cleaning products, and other childcare items that these families had put on their wish list were provided by our employee group. And Ms. Ryan and Ms. Finley did some quick shopping, put everything together, and those items have been delivered. And so we were able to support 10 families in our community. The other thing tied in with that is council is aware that this year we created our employee philanthropic committee, and we call them the CARES team. Ms. Honker leads that group, and I appreciate her time and energy in doing that. This year, as we came to the holiday season, we know it's been very difficult, specifically for nursing homes. And that is how I appreciate your comments, Ms. Lawrence and Mr. Nord, about nursing homes. Town staff spent some time last week, and we filled out 600 holiday cards for nursing home residents. And we put together 225 care packages of trinkets, gifts, snacks that we were told that they might like. And our CARES team is coordinating delivery to 5 nursing homes, and all of those items were done by the CARES team and town employees that support this philanthropic effort. So I just want to express my appreciation to the town employee philanthropic group and specifically the Sharing Tree folks for putting these items together on behalf of Town of Normal employees and the organization. The other thing I wanted to mention to council to basically close out our comments for 2020, I think you'll find this incredibly exciting news. We recently were notified by Fitch Ratings that they have reaffirmed our AAA bond rating. And so I can't tell you how excited we are to hear that news. We did not ask them to do a review. This was just one of their standard reviews. So a huge thank you, not only to Mr. Hune and the finance team for their great management of our financials and our financial status, but also to all the town departments that work very hard to be fiscally responsible, also to the elected officials. So thank you to the City Council for the tough decisions that you make along the way. And I just wanted to share that exciting news. We will be pushing that information out tomorrow. And for those that just wanted clarification, the affirmation of our AAA bond rating basically supports that we have ample reserves and what they call superior budgetary flexibility, and that we have existing financial flexibility resulting from conservative budgeting and strong reserves, and also strong financial policies, and that the town takes an active role in economic development, which they believe is very important. So thank you to everyone for your role in helping us continue to achieve our AAA bond rating.
Congratulations. Yeah, good news.
Bravo. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Kudos.
So it has been a tough year, and this year is coming to an end, and I think we're all glad to see that happen. Nobody's going to miss 2020, I don't think. If we go into the Christmas this coming weekend, just my best wishes to everyone for a safe and joyous holiday season going forward. And I know we'll probably be in contact with fewer people than we normally are, but for the ones that we are in contact with, take care of them. They're going to take care of you. Have a great holiday. Motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
Please call the roll.
Mrs. Lorenz,
Aye.
Mr. Preston,
Aye.
Mr. McCarthy,
Aye.
Ms. Cummings,
Aye.
Mr. Nord,
Aye.
Ms. Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Kus.
Aye. We're adjourned. Thank you.